Hello and welcome everyone to another hopefully lively discussion on the worldview of atheism and agnosticism under scrutiny. Welcome. My name is Ray, and to my side, welcome my partner in crime, Errol. Welcome, Errol, and his lovely daughter. And we have also my wife Stella with me in the background listening in. So a little bit of a family affair going on here, but we will be talking some serious stuff here, so it won't be too light, humorous. We will try and add a little bit of humor where we can, just to make it a little bit more enjoyable. But it is a serious matter because for us, lives are at stake. So if you believe in atheism, in other words, that's your worldview, that there is no God, there cannot be a God, or whichever way you want to position it. We would like to hear from you, and we would also like to challenge you, because if there is no God, we are in a serious state of affairs. Because what is the future? What is the hope of mankind, of any of us, if there is no God, no creator, no origin, no intelligent creator behind all things that can control all things, and therefore give us a plan, a hope for the future that would make more sense of the lives that we live. And that's what we believe as Christians. That's why we have the stream, because we have a very convincing argument. In fact, we now even have such a convincing argument, we now have a stream for it. So we are having a worldview Christianity under scrutiny. That's now on a Friday, so welcome to the new stream for that. If those who want to join us, that's tomorrow, in fact, at the same similar time. And so let's crack on. We do have some evidence that challenges, I should say, that we really are putting out there. I'll quickly go through three of them. I know I've just seen somebody already, and that's what I call keen. Somebody already in the background. I don't know if Errol, if you've got anything from them, have they made any messages or
I'm trying to get information, Brother Ray.
Thank you so much. So our main three challenges, which has been here from the very start, I'll just quickly present them to everyone that wants to see them. And these challenges are simply this. First, number one, the evidence that the whole universe, the origin of the universe, cannot come from intelligent design. We want a definite challenge to prove to us not only that it cannot, not that you believe it does not, but it cannot, not an option, in other words, and therefore what is the position to prove the alternative. So we want something very positive. We don't just say you don't believe. We want some concrete evidence, because we're going to provide some very good concrete evidence that there is a God. So that's our challenge to you atheists out there, and even to you agnostics. Why do you not believe and be convinced there is a God, even if you're in a position where you are not ruling out the possibility? What's stopping you from actually believing there is a God? The second is the evidence of the source of morality. As we know, we have intrinsically in all of us the understanding of what morality is. I think there is a very clear agreement across the board on the top level of what morality is. I think nobody would argue that that includes having a love for one another, being kind to one another, being considerate, respectful. There's a big list there, and there is really no argument or against those kind of top level areas of morality. But what we're saying is, provide us the evidence of where that morality comes from, the source of that morality, because that, again, another big evidence pointing toward the source of life. That's evidence too. And then from a Christian point of view, believing there is a God is one thing, but our evidence to believe that the God of the Holy Bible, under what we would say is the best representation of that belief, is under the Christian worldview. And now main, if you like, contender to why we believe in God and we believe in the Bible as Christians really hinges more than anything over the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So as such, if that was to be true and be proven to be true, would you still hold your position as an atheist or agnostic? Or would you then have to reconsider? Because if it is true, it carries the most significant of importance to answering the origin of life. Because, of course, the resurrection of Jesus wasn't just an ordinary resurrection. Coming back from the dead is simply not something that can happen naturally. It has to be supernatural. And our question is, if that is true, we need to then look at the source of where and how Jesus came back to life. And that is going to give us a big clue, we believe, to the origin of life. And we have a lot to talk about on that subject. But of course, it really does fly in the face of anyone that doesn't believe in a God, because it makes absolutely no sense if there's no God and what we know of nature. But how can somebody that dies come back to life? So it's a huge thing. We, as I say, we have a very significant level of historical evidence to support that. And so that's, again, another challenge to you atheists out there and agnostics, to challenge the evidence behind the resurrection and the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So those are the three challenges. That's certainly something we would like to pose to everybody as our kind of main theme to the show. And we do have somebody actually in stage. So welcome. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I'm going to go and try to say Ita. Don't know if that's right, Ita, but you are welcome to join in. Welcome to the station. We're going to just add you now, and by all means, introduce yourself.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Just about. I don't know whether you can raise your volume slightly.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to.
Oh, that's
Is that any better?
That's a lot better. Great.
Okay, yeah, I'll try. And just let me know if it drops down.
No,
Then
okay,
I'll
we'll
try.
do. Sure.
Yeah. So hi, Ray and Arul and everybody else. I mean, I met why I'm on here is I met Arul on Speaker's Corner last Sunday, and just to give a brief, I mean, I think Arul, you were speaking to Muslims and you were going through the archaeological evidence for Quran. And I think at one point you turned to me, maybe my beard made you think I was Muslim. So, but no, I'm an atheist agnostic. So you gave me your card at the time. So I just thought to check, because I was actually on when on Tuesday when they had the Judaism thing, just to see what was going on the channel. So then I learned today is the day for atheist agnostic. So I'm here now. So.
Brilliant, and welcome. Have I pronounced your name right, by the way?
Yeah, just Ita, yeah.
Ita, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right,
Ita, lovely to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Cool. For some reason, Errol has the monopoly over the sound volume, so his voice will always sound slightly more superior to the rest of us. I can't adjust this. So he's got one on us, so he's always going to sound slightly more profound. Plus, his content probably a bit more profound anyway, but he's getting a bit on the levels. But we can hear you okay, so that's good. So in terms of your, I mean, you heard the challenges. I don't know if you want to address one of the challenges, or you have your own personal question you would like to raise.
No, I'm happy to go through. I mean, all three of them. I mean, starting from the. Yeah, I mean, I'm more here for just the discussion. I mean, I'm not necessarily. I can't guarantee you that I can definitively prove or disprove anything in this, but that's happy to have a discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, and we welcome that, and that's the main thing. We just like to have healthy dialogue, and always interested to people's views. So the first one, I think the first one's a really interesting one, because I think one of the big things that's been put out there, and a lot of people kind of haven't really studied this that much, or haven't at least updated themselves from some of the old historical views of the origin of life. And it's been, for me, a bit of an interesting journey to see where has science gone with this. And far as I can see, the only thing they have is, and I just want to make this clear, you know, when we're talking about the origin of life, we're not talking about something that's in place that then from that point life begins. So for example, the most common one we would adhere to, that we're aware of, is the Big Bang, you know, as in there was some big structure, whatever that is, which is some bundle of matter that through an explosion, life then began over, of course, chuck a billion years at it or whatever, so many years, that eventually over time would result in the life that we see currently. That's one argument in terms of understanding how life forms, but we want to go back a step before that and say, if it was even, say, the Big Bang, we would ask the question, what is the source of that original matter? And from us, I can only see two options. It's either that it's just a piece of matter that just comes from nothing, or it comes from something that is both has a mind, it has some level of power and control. And one other piece that we would add to that is to say that it also must be outside of time and space. It can't be contingent to the natural limitations that we understand of the universe, because what we'll have is what we call infinite regression, that if that had a beginning, what started that? And then you'd look at that and you keep asking the question, and you would simply not get anywhere in terms of, by that logical inference, it must therefore mean that the very origin of life must have always been there. I don't know what your take is on that.
Well, I think I'll start just regarding, I mean, my knowledge of Big Bang itself is not that strong anyway. I don't know that much about the physics, but just the very basic understanding is that it's everything, you know, I mean, I know you said what's before, so it started with a singularity, and that's where everything came, time, the universe, everything else. But I guess what is before that? I mean, yes, I understand. From a theist point of view, I guess you'd say you'd posit a god. But I know, for instance, Aristotle did have at one point posited an eternal universe, and I know you mentioned infinite regression, but I don't necessarily know if that's necessarily a problem per se, because, and I know you mentioned it logically, but actually I think you'd need to show a contradiction as to why there cannot be an infinite regress so the universe, for all I know, I'm saying that I'm not asserting that is, but for all I know, it could be eternal. It could be that there was some sort of a framework that is eternal, and then there was the Big Bang, the singularity from which time and everything else came. So I guess, I don't know if the bigger word would be the universe or cosmos has always existed, but then the universe come down from that, then that's all come, yeah.
I get what you're saying, and there is some kind of sense in it, but once we break this down, it might, that would like to challenge some of this, because when you break this down, what we're saying about singularity is is to start defining some of the definite scientific discoveries that we're aware of. And one of those is whatever the origin of a single cell, what we do know about that single cell life form, if we say that in some way was a beginning, it itself would still carry over 3 billion genetic codes contained within it. There is no exception to all cell life forms, even at a singular level like cell life form. It still contains this incredible genetical information, which then leads to the question, where did all that genetical code come from? If it was just somehow just exists, that sounds incredibly hard to swallow, versus to say, surely there must have been some intelligent design behind it to have placed that intelligent code within that single cell. Because we do not see any non-living cell from a non-living life form creating, through any process, a living single cell. So that's the first issue. The second issue is the complexity of that single cell is so incredibly sophisticated. We're not talking like a minor level. We are talking, you know, this is said 3 billion what you call like genetic letters that can sit within a single cell. What does that tell you about that cell? Does that point more likely, logically, that there is intelligent design behind it rather than there's not? So that's really one of the big things that we have an issue with. The second is this whole process that if there is no design or intelligence behind molecular processes that creates and forms life, we should see a very different picture to what we see today. We would see a lot of randomness. We don't see every fossilization process step by step. There's gaps. We see a single cell life form, but we don't see a 2-cell life form, a 3-cell life form. So again, it then says it can't be that everything comes from a single cell life form. And we simply don't, as I said, have the fossilization process confirming every stage of that evolutionary process to form life from a single cell. There's just gaps everywhere. And it comes from what we can only see if there's no intelligence, from purely a random process, and without any intelligence behind it, some order that can coordinate and construct and control that process. That randomness that we would otherwise see would simply mean we would have so much evidence of that, but we don't. We see an incredibly complex, orchestrated, design form of evidence in all the universe we see, even from a single cell level all the way to the complexity of the universe in terms of how precise the Earth needs to be, where the axis is. All the fine-tune of the whole universe is fine-tuned to the incredible fine levels, which again all points to some very strong, clear evidence of intelligent design behind it. And that's the bit that we struggle if you simply can't accept or agree that that is a very good case, that there must be something behind the universe rather than there's not.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd like to start with, because it appears, I don't mean it in a bad way, but it might be certain presumptions about it. So how old do you think the universe is actually?
Yeah, that's something that is not easy to truly prove. I mean, from the Bible that we believe in, it says it's about 6,500 years. Of course, the difficulty with that is if you want to say it's much older, the only problem is we are assuming there is a linear process of the aging of the Earth from day one. But here's the thing with that, where that would potentially not be the case is if a creator creates the Earth and accelerates that process to form the Earth rapidly, far greater in a normal process that we see life forming today, billions of years could be made by the creator in one day, if he so wishes. He has the power. So it doesn't really allow us to have any clue whether there's a God or not by trying to age the Earth, because it only would work if we could assume that there is the linear process. And no scientists can prove that. There's no way of proving that. And it's then a huge assumption that there is this linear continually progression of the aging of the Earth as we see it today. Then you could go back and say it's billions of years old. But then this is huge assumption that the aging process has always been in that level of increment. But we've got no way of proving that. And so there, we still, scientists are still back to square one, that from an aging point of view, it's not a very good method to prove or disprove whether there's a God from that perspective.
Okay. Because regarding the age of the universe, I think one strong contender for to support the claims that the universe and then the Earth itself are in the billions of years is from astronomy. So for stars, so the fastest you can travel is the speed of light. So stars, what we see, a lot of the stars that we see, some of them are already dead, so they don't exist. But how long it takes a long time for the light for many of the stars to get to us, and that means you were talking hundreds of millions. I can't give you any specific figures, but that would already, I think that would already showcase that Earth itself or the universe being thousands of years old wouldn't be feasible just by the calculations of measurements
so
of the
again,
astronomers.
this is I get your point, but that would only assume again is it has to place that assumption of this same case that the linear progression of any form of life, whether it's a star or whatever, has always been uniform as we know it today. Then you can trace it back based on that assumption that it is millions and billions of years old. But again, it's using that assumption, and that assumption cannot be absolutely proven either way.
May I just do you mean that things like the speed of light, they're not a thing then? So that things don't travel at the so there's a maximum speed, and we can't measure how fast stars are or planets are. Is that? I'm not quite. I think I just would like some clarification.
All I'm really saying is it's not a way. I mean, the age of the universe, I think at the end of the day, is not a way I would say that could prove or disprove there's not a creator, intelligent design behind it. It's just really an area where it's trying to understand how that origin began. But put it this way, if the evidence of God was clear cut and you believed and convinced there's a God, you're not then going to be able to understand how God then put the universe together and the method he used, which could then, because there's no reason why a creator of the universe couldn't create the universe and say, it says there, 6 days, for example. That's very possible from an almighty designer. And then from that point could be then the way the creation and the starting from that point could then make sense and explain all these other ideas. But because that is a piece that just is impossible to prove, you're never in a lifetime ever going to get to the answer of that. So for me, it's kind of it's an interesting point. It'd be nice to understand it, but it's something that scientists really are not able to get absolute evidence of to prove that things are billions of years old. It is based on a whole line of assumptions. I mean, it's not something that I've got a great deal of information of, but what study I have done is that is one of the strongest conclusions that's been made, is that it is based on a lot of assumptions, and those assumptions haven't as yet been proved or disproved. They have to exist. And I don't know, Abel, have you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say, Ita, the distant starlight problem is not just a problem with the few thousand years alone. It's also a problem with 15 billion years.
In what sense do you mean?
Because we see stars which are much more than 15 billion light years away.
Oh, unless you mean the stars are further away than the universe in the age of the universe?
Absolutely. In other words,
I'm not quite sure.
Please check. Please check. It's very much true. People are observing stars which are much further away in our perception than the 15 billion light years distance that should have been observed if there were only 15 billion years available in the entire age. In other words, it's the same problem in both sides, and both sides have explanations which are things that we don't observe today. For instance, I think in the non-theistic worldview, Big Bang related model, there is the this is why the very inflationary model, where initially you see a sudden inflation. That's precisely brought in for this particular reason. In other words, similar to that, like what Ray was saying, as Christians, we understand at the start there was an inflation. The Bible talks about an expansion of the, where God stretched out the heavens and that sort of phrases. Yeah, long story short, that's not an argument against biblical creation alone. It's an argument against even the 15 billion years history present suggested.
Yeah, but in that case, wouldn't you? I mean, I don't want to labor on that point because my knowledge of physics and astronomy is not that strong. So I'll have to read up more on that myself. It's just more of a layman's understanding I have anyway. But
and I think,
I guess, yeah, sorry, go on.
Now, I'm just going to say, it's that the difficulty with it's one of those arguments that it's going to be like beyond a real strong method to really answer the question whether there is a God, because it's one of those things you just have to part, because of there is, as Errol very well pointed out, there is major challenges from both ends to it, because we can't prove how a universe can be built in 6 days, but we have no science method to do that. But if there was a God, of course, with all that power, it's very feasible, of course, if there is a creator, and we've got absolute evidence that you're now convinced there's a creator, and if he then revealed one day exactly how he went about it, it would blow our minds. Like, oh, wow, that's just amazing. But it's possible if there is a creator. So either way, you're kind of having to park that and think, okay, it's not really a good way to prove whether there is a God or not. I think it's like, it's just going to be one of those things that scientists will just have to put on the shelf as just an impossible one to truly use it as a basis, if you know what I mean. There are much stronger ways or better ways to deal with the argument, I think, than that. I think that's one of the almost one of the toughest, arguments that really scientists admit themselves they don't really have anywhere close enough information to understand. It's all theory at the end of the day, and as what Errol pointed out, it's problematic even from an atheist perspective. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to potentially bring up as an...
Yeah, so just what was it?
What really burns you to feel and believe what you believe from this position? What's really the main contender for you?
Sorry, I don't know if I froze up. I missed a bit of you, but if we're still on the first challenge, so I think what was I making? The point I was going to make. Sorry, just flow off. So anyway, I think I'm happy to move on from the physics for now to more the biology, I guess, because you mentioned the issue with getting, I guess, how do you get from non-living molecules? How do you get the first cell? I guess you would say. I guess that was the chat one. So I guess my understanding is it's been a while since because I did study biology at university, but it's been a lot of years, and I don't work directly within academia or deal with. I work in pharma, but that's not. I don't deal with evolution as much as. So, but from memory, just going from memory, I think it's obviously you need a certain type of conditions, which the fact that we are yet to find life showcase that it's a very rare thing indeed to find life. So how it started is you obviously at a point from simpler molecules you get macromolecules come together. So you'd get proteins and nucleic acids.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, nucleic acids, I don't know if they inherently have it or they kind of can have the potential to self-replicate. So once they were able to, certain nucleic acids were then came enclosed. So they formed the first like RNA, and that was the first enclosed kind of. So the first RNA, and then that became enclosed, and that would have been like the first prokaryotic cells, so single cells, simpler than the eukaryotic ones, from which certain prokaryotic cells would have developed into, and then how you would have had then eukaryotic cells or more multicellular cells would have conglomerated together, so would formed like colonies of cells, and those would have over time become a single organism over time, multicellular organism, and so on and so on. Then we get greater complexity in life. And I think one evidence kind of, which is, I mean, because we can't, I would caveat that with that regarding the nucleic acids the non-living turning into the living cell, we don't fully understand that from what I can remember, unless something's been discovered since I left uni. But so that's still uncertain, but that's the best working hypothesis or best working
okay. So yeah, I'm gonna give you a great challenge for you. You're gonna like this. So if you don't mind, can I give you a tiny bit of homework? But sure. It's not a big piece. One of the I would say one of the great molecular biologists, if you can call him that, I think that's probably what he'd like to be called amongst many other names, because he's got such a talent in many areas of science. There's a guy called James Tour. I don't know if you've heard of him. Now, I would highly recommend you. He has basically put a challenge out to all those scientists out there about single cell and how you could get from a non-cell to a single cell, and so forth. And that process, under the conditions of non-intelligent design, is pure random process, or some kind of evolutionary random process. The evidence to prove that it's feasible. And the argument basically is this, that the probability or the way that would work without any intelligent design behind it is 10 times the trillion to the power of a trillion. So that's how likely that is. So it's really as good as impossible. And it's a bit like the famous, I'm sure you've heard this said once in your life in some part over time, where there's this thing about, if you get 1 million monkeys together, chimpanzees, whatever, and give them a typewriter, and somehow over billions and billions and trillions of years, somebody eventually is going to randomly write the full works of Shakespeare. We know that's never, ever, ever going to happen, because when something gets to those ridiculous levels of unlikeliness, that is just something you can't really put a basis or a belief behind. It's just too remote that really the feasibility is as good as impossible. So I would highly recommend, because I'm no expert in this area, if you're going to look at this whole process of a non-living cell starting through some kind of random process, non-intelligent design behind that process, evolutionary working through single cell, as you said, the nucleotides and so on, and all these proteins building and developing without intelligent design in the way that the hypothesis is put forward to provide the evidence that it works, there is none. He's put the time, and this is where I make the point. Many molecular biologists and scientists, what have you, have put some fantastic theories together, and they are impressive. James Tour has ripped them all apart, showing the massive gaps and flaws in their studies. So I would highly recommend to go away and have a watch of that challenge. I mean, I think you could type the challenge. If you're going to struggle, we could put it on the as a link, and you can, and we can certainly provide that if you need. Maybe if you want to put your details in the private chat, we could send you the video for you.
That's fine.
That's where this can be really powerful, because this is super complex, and we're talking about the very, very, very best scientists, molecular biologists, what have you, being challenged, and they have come forward. Many of them have come forward, all of which have been debunked so far, and no one has come anywhere close. And that, for me, is an incredible case of evidence to show that molecular cell development into life forms has to therefore logically come from some sort of intelligent design. That is far more logical as an explanation, because if it is that any other method is just, as I said, 10 times trillion to the power of trillion or whatever mathematical number, something to the impossible, it really isn't a true case, if you like, which means it needs to be re-looked at to say, okay, let's consider an intelligent design. Because if we're going to be honest with ourselves, if there really isn't any realistic way at all without that intelligent design, then that's really got to be genuinely an option to consider. And that's what we would like you to take that step, if you like. But by all means, I will send you the link. You can have a watch. And with maybe the studies you've done, that you may be able to understand a lot more than I would of it, to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, sure. I'll have a look. I mean, I'm not aware of the challenge you're speaking, so I don't know if that might have been even something more recent. So obviously, because I'm not keeping up to date with the literature.
I do like the point you just made there, though, that you don't really see these challenges, and that's an interesting point. Many of the scientists behind this have been very clever to not allow them to be challenged, put their theories out there, and make these theories sound so plausible that the people just believe them. But actually, there are major flaws to them. And James Tour is one example of a very, very good molecular biologist, has absolutely showed the evidence of where those flaws are. And this is where the real crux of the evidence sits. And it's sad that many of these theories have really been allowed to exist for so long without being truly challenged. But that's not the case today. They are seriously being challenged. And that's one of the great things about this, is it's really that we're in an age where we can really start to see. I lost him.
Sorry, Ray, I brought this up. Sorry.
Yeah, can I just one quick point if regarding the challenge itself? I mean, I'll obviously hold judgment until I've researched into that myself. But I think the question of the going from a non-living material to the first living cell, whatever prokaryotic cell it was, is obviously a very tough question. I can just because I can even think back from again university when I was working on a dissertation which involved cultivating bacteria, and I know most bacteria, it's nigh impossible to cultivate them under lab conditions, and these are just bacteria that already exist. There's a lot of them we can't study in the lab, so I can only think trying to create the first living cell from non-living material. I don't even want to think what kind of how precise the conditions would have to be. So that's why I would give some benefit of doubt to the people who have tried and have failed, because
and of course it's not just in the lab, by the way. It's also in chemical theory, so using chemical equations to actually show and demonstrate how it would work. So they can't even do that.
You still have to demonstrate it live at the end of the day, because
but they're not even. So it's a bit like a formula from a mathematical point of view. Is they can't even have the formula to demonstrate how it would work, because there's James Tour has proven time and time again that there are major flaws to it. So even if it's a theory in terms of a chemical equation, and as you rightly said, demonstrated in the lab, in both cases, there is no proven case to date.
So I guess one quick thing before I move on to the second term, I think I just wanted to ask regarding evolution. So do you guys believe in evolution, or just a microevolution, and you don't believe in macroevolution, or what's your take on evolution in general? Just forgetting going from non-living to a living cell, but evolution itself, is that feasible or not at all?
No, not really. So I won't go over it too much on this session, because I think that would deserve its own piece, and I will have to do a little bit of research on that. But generally, we certainly don't believe in evolution in the way that it has been presented. And the thing is, nowadays there's been some great advancements over this whole study of evolution, and it has continued flaws that have been developed that clearly demonstrate the real issues with evolution. But
I mean,
But
I guess my
don't-
thing would be:
go on.
do you believe in microevolution, or not?
Yes.
Not even microevolution.
Micro S,
Bacteria,
no macro.
viruses. Sorry.
Micro S, macro no.
That's a bit. How come that is? Is it because of the? Is it because of the time it takes, or why is it? Why do you believe in microevolution but not macro? Considering they're all organisms within the animal kingdom at the end of the day.
Simply because micro is permitted by the DNA content already available. It's just a selection based on DNA content already available, whereas macro is based on not based on that.
What do you mean? It's not based on DNA. I don't quite understand.
No, okay, but micro is essentially as you descend further, as you progress ahead in terms of generations. Micro is really a manifestation of genetic material that is already available in, let's say, the parents.
Okay.
So generation 1, the genetic content is already there. Over, let's say, 100 generations, you have dogs, let's say cats, and other forms of cat-like organisms, like feline.
So there can be different species. Is that what you mean? They're within.
Yeah,
You can have different species arising from another species. Is that
even something like that? Although I mean, the Bible talks about what is called kind, which I don't think is at the species level. I think it's I'm not sure exactly. I forgot. I need to look back. But the either genus or family, that level of taxonomy is where I think the biblical
I guess it would be genus.
classification. So I think from the point simply is we're talking about over generations where particular subset of genetics DNA content manifesting itself in one form versus in another form. But rather with macro evolution, what you have to demonstrate is above that level. For example, how could multicellular organisms come from unicellular organisms? That's not through DNA. I forget the term. What is this? What is the term I'm looking for? Sorry. Natural selection. Sorry, it's not through natural selection. Yeah. Sorry, I can't believe it.
So on the macro level, I'd say is, and thank you, Al, that's a great point. Is on the macro level, we would have to have some demonstration where we would call what we call the missing link, where you see a species through macro evolution then be formed into another species. Even the whole point of a chimpanzee or monkey becoming a human, there's that huge gap, which is still the case. We have absolutely zero cases of any form, from a macro perspective, of any form of life changing or forming into another different form. So a cat becoming a dog, a monkey becoming a human, whatever variation you want to give, there is absolutely zero example, and that missing link that connects that to prove that simply does not exists even today. So
we can demonstrate it by the phylogenetic tree. I mean, that's quite well documented. For instance,
say that again, sorry,
so we've got a phylogenetic tree. So you're looking at pretty much the base pairing per species, and the further up you go the tree, the further down you go on the tree, I guess, the closer you would have the base pairing. So why with chimpanzees we share so much of the DNA is because our closest common ancestor was closer than we were to. That's why we closer to chimpanzees than gorillas. I believe it was because the one us and chimpanzees, the common ancestor we had with the gorilla. If you look at the phylogenetic tree, the base pairing, if you do the measurement or you analyze it, you can see that we had at some point we deviated. And also this is why, because so instance, why certain species you can produce hybrids, like tigers and lions are close enough, even though they're different species, they're close enough on the phylogenetic tree that they can still produce offspring, offspring which can procreate. So ligers, I think, is the term, or if it's a male lion and female tiger, I think. But that indicates that they're still close enough that they can mate, but they can't produce offspring that can then go on to produce further species because they're too far apart at that point. So that is when you get too far apart on the phylogenetic tree, basically, then you become less viable to
there is an issue with this on what you said. Is as much as you can have two forms of kind very similar in its DNA structure, molecular structure, whatever, like the case with you say a chimpanzee and a human, that isn't itself not the evidence we're looking at, because if there are other species that have very similar genetic code is one thing, but it's being able to prove that one has, through a macroevolutionary process, seen evidence of that different form of species, no matter how close in genetic code it's compared to humans, actually forms from a chimpanzee to a human. That's the point. In theory,
we didn't come from. Sorry to interrupt. We didn't come from chimpanzees. Us and chimpanzees share a common ancestor, which might not exist anymore. So chimpanzees, you wouldn't see a chimpanzee turn into a human, but down the line you might see a chimp turn into two different species.
But there's no evidence of that transition. Is my point. There's no evidence of that transition at all.
We have phylogenetic tree. If you look at it, we might not have every. It's like when the periodic table was first put up. Yeah. We didn't have all the elements, but they were then discovered later. So it's just, and fossils aren't always easy to find and then document. So, and then it takes a lot of study, and there's probably a lot going on behind the background that I don't even know about, because I only know tangentially about evolution and.
But what we will do is, I'm going to make a note of that, because it's not an area that I spent a huge amount of time in. But there is.
Can I
go now?
Yeah, note carefully. The phylogenetic tree is purely our idea, and the phylogenetic tree is purely our way of representing taxonomy, our way.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Our way of doing it. It's not necessarily corroborated by understanding history. It's just our suggestion. It's just okay, pocket lollipop later. Sorry, it's just our speculative idea. In other words, it's not a proven fact. Now, in the phylogenetic, sweetie, one second. Sorry, one second, guys. The point simply is within the tree there are plenty of features on which different organisms or different categories, different families, genuses, and so on exhibit completely different forms, of digestion and different form of respiration and all sorts of different things which can't be explained by common ancestry. So in other words, it's more a visualization for us, where we can with any kind of data, even if there is no causal relationship, you can still sort of represent data as if it has a causal relationship. So that's the entire deal with the phylogenetic tree.
I mean, if I guess if that's what you think, but I mean that doesn't quite. I'd still disagree with that, because obviously the further back you go up the phylogenetic tree, that you're going to find differences between a tiger versus a crab. I don't know, that they separated from a common ancestor, I don't know, 500 million years ago. So, but I mean, I take your point. That's fine. I mean, and I'm fine to move from the physics biology to the second point. I think about morality, isn't it?
Yes. Okay.
Unless there's anything else you want to ask me.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I mean, ideally, in terms of genetic, what can be explained by genetic composition of predecessors, I think ideally we should actually represent taxonomy in the form of a forest, not one tree, because there are clearly leaps which can't be explained purely by genetic variation. And so though, in other words, we really need to be representing all of living forms as many little trees. That's how ideally it should have been done. And if that is how things are done, then it'll be clear that we can see some things that can just descend from some other things, but we can't see many things that are correlated necessarily. That's where I think the biggest leap has been made. But what is not demonstrably the case has been sort of very easily, because it's by a stroke of pen, sort of connected together as if it is one tree.
The missing link.
I think that's fine. I think one good person, if you want to kind of, that does a lot of because I mean, I didn't study evolution mainly, just I know it tangential from my degree, and so I mean, it's probably good for me to brush up a bit. It's been so many years, but I know someone on YouTube that I know he does a lot, has done a lot on evolution, and is for, I guess, accessible to the layman. So Aaron Ra, I think he's got a YouTube channel. I don't know if you know him, but he's done some good stuff on evolution, just teaching across. I mean, sometimes in debates it doesn't come across very well, I'll give him that, but from the all evolution bits I've seen, they seem solid from the background I know. But I mean, I'm happy to leave it for now, and maybe we can discuss evolution itself another time in more detail. I'm happy to, I guess, move on to the morality bit next, if that's okay.
And on morality, I want to pose something to you, because this is quite an interesting thing. I watched a film the other day. Unknown to me, this subject came up, but it came up in a very different way than I heard it before. And it tends to go down the road of a sort of philosophical approach. And basically, it kind of goes like this, to say that in terms of how we understand things, in terms of understanding reality, that this is all subjective. And morality is just subjective. There's no absolute morality. But then he took another step forward in saying that even our own our own identity is subjective, saying that as individuals, we can change who we are if we so wish. That is not something absolute. And this for me is a very, apart from being a very dangerous kind of route to go down, is really to be more honest with oneself and say, when we look at morality, for example, in our challenge, is, we all have got to agree commonly that we have this intrinsic understanding of morality, in that I'm sure you would agree that we share at a top level a fair consistent number of what we would see as moral positives and negatives that we would agree. For example, I'm sure you wouldn't dispute for 1 second that love is a good moral virtue, as is being kind, being generous, being honest, being truthful, being respectful, and so on. And we wouldn't really disagree that we have this sort of intrinsic knowledge and understanding. But what we don't have is any one individual that has an absolute control of that morality. But we agree that we have it intrinsically in us, which then again suggests where is the source of that morality. So interesting your thoughts, Ita.
Yeah, so I mean, regarding morality, I'm a lot more undecided or unsettled on that, because one thing is, I know there's different ways of look. So I mean, obviously there's the you're thinking about coming from God, so like whether it's divine command theories and other things like that. And obviously from an atheist agnostic perspective, there's people that they have like moral realists that but like moral realism, that morality exists as a thing, like almost like laws of logic kind of thing, that they just are, and we as humans are discovering them. But I don't think I buy into that myself, because sounds very Platonic almost, in that there's almost like a realm where these moral standards are sitting, and we just need to tap into them, and then hey ho, we've discovered objective morality. So so mine is, I think I do take more of a, at the moment, because I'm still, this is something I took more interest in the recent years. I'm trying to like learn more and study. So at the moment, I'm taking more of a, like, the morals are circumstantial, or as in a way subjective, in a way, or intersubjective. So intersubjective in the sense that, for instance, in the UK, there's a set of laws, of course, which codify morality, but there's customs as well, where if it might not be against the law, but it's considered a major faux pas to break that kind of custom. While then you fly over to Nepal, and that custom, they don't even have it. So it's not a moral consideration for them. So yeah, I do at the moment look that there's kind of a subjectivity to morality, and I guess that's it. So I would also accept that if there was a God, especially the Christian conception of a theistic God, then I have to take more seriously that probably at least there'd be very strong evidence in favor of there being an objective framework for morals. So that's kind of what I stand at the moment.
I think that's a fair point. I do like the way you approach this, because it sounds like you're open to this discussion on this, and open to letting the evidence direct you to where it takes you. And if it is that it clearly points to a God, a designer, an origin, which we call God, that's behind it, then you would be happy to move in that direction. And because that's really, like, for us, really, really significant. And just to put that to you, if you look at just taking humans purely on their own, now, in terms of the studies of the brain, it's basically, it kind of explains it this way, to say that it's simply a process of molecular molecules just bouncing around like fizz, and just working around reactions, chemical reactions, whatever, like a circuit board, if you want, millions of little, things going on, little charges and what have you. But if that was just simply a brain that just exists and randomly just spins around and all the rest of it, how does it have any ability to come up with a clear set of morals that is consistently in agreement, fundamentally at the very top, that is shared by, pretty much humankind? Again, that would say, where is the source of this? Why is that we all agree that love is clearly a moral quality that we would all agree is a good, genuine quality that we should uphold to? We have this consistent agreement, which again, it can't be just something that we just are born and it just some randomly through evolutionary process just forms in every single human. It just screams that there must be some very good reason, some kind of purpose behind it to have this morality. Because if it was just subjective and people could have all different forms of morality, we would have chaos beyond even the bad world we have at the moment. It would be multiplied to the ridiculous, because even if those top level of forms of morality did not exist and it was more random, and we have people that would say, no, I'm not into that, I'm into just killing, I don't care about love, doesn't do it for me, blah, 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 blah. And there was just too many contrary views of what morality is. It would really, really be a complete mess. And that would be what the evolutionary process would suggest. It would be a random process. There shouldn't be this consistency that goes from all humans across all the universe, across all the earth, in all the different countries, having this consistent moral framework. We only talk about top level, because obviously there's a level of free will where we can choose within that moral framework a more detailed level in how you break it down on what you classify as love, what you classify as a good deed, and so on. But that top level, those core moral elements are incredibly consistent across all of humankind. It's been the case right across history. And again, that again just begs the question, what is that source? There must be an absolute source of morality in order for that morality to be intrinsically in all of humankind. Otherwise, if it wasn't, and it was purely non-intelligent design in bringing forth where we have a form of morality, it would be far more random, and there would not be this unified agreement that we see across humankind.
Yeah, so I mean, I just start off regarding free will. I'm actually more on lean more on the side of the universal reality being deterministic. So whatever the arrangement of the atoms right now as I'm speaking, I couldn't have said these words I'm saying. It couldn't have been any other way if considering the arrangement of these atoms. So I mean, so it's pretty much going down from I guess from physics. You want to talk about quantum theory, which I mean I don't know much about, but feeding down from that. So the way I look at like morality is just different things. Like we've very much so I would take the evolutionary route. So we've evolved in this way, and some of us, are the apparatus we have, moral apparatus, is developed over time, evolved over time, if you want to say. And one thing I would put in the favor of that, or if you want to call it hypothesis or theory, is for instance, you said love is you'd say is the greatest moral thing, or I don't know if I might agree with that, but there are psychopaths who don't. They recognize that it's the normative morality is that love is the greatest. If you had a society of psychopaths and they dictated the morality, love might not be at the top; it might be at the bottom. So that's why I kind of look at it subjectively, and just speaking something historical things as well is, for instance, by the Bible, homosexuality is wrong. But if you go before that, you go to from the area where Christianity developed when it was, well, not quite there, but I guess it was Judaism first, but if you take the Greeks and Romans, they didn't even have a concept of homosexuality. For them, men having sex with men wasn't wrong. It was only you were looked down upon if you were the one on the receiving end of it. While then we go to when we had, the Jews came up with for whatever reasons, that homosexuality was wrong, and then that obviously became enshrined in Christianity. So historically, I'm not convinced that we have an apparatus by which we can make a way of trying to find what's moral, but I don't think we all necessarily agree on.
Can I just respond to that then? So first of all, let's start with the psychopath, because you did cover a few things there, and potentially went off a bit on a tangent, but we'll address it anyway. And definitely would welcome our thoughts as well after I give you a quick response. But my first one would be, when we look at morality and we look at the quality of love, for example, and you're saying, well, they could be a psychopath who would just simply not have a view of or a strong view of love as a good morality, moral feature, and may have it, as you say, well down his list. But we're looking at a demonstrative case of one, very likely that the individual has got some sort of condition or issue. There is a mental issue with that individual. If we studied and we got them checked out, that wouldn't be a natural, normal behavior. There would be definitely some issues that could be, shall we say, if researched, and you could say maybe the history of this individual may have had a bad childhood, that there would be traumatic experiences. There may be all sorts of reasons that are built up over their life that's caused them to go that way. But that's the first thing. It would definitely demonstrate there is some disorder going on mentally with the individual, for one. And secondly, there is no demonstration that clearly can prove that form of morality is good, because it is so harmful. I mean, to have the view that you think somebody can just be chaotic and kill people at a whim, for his personal benefits. And this kind of approach goes completely against the grain of the welfare of humankind. I mean, it's one of the most commonly attested forms of morality is the protection of human life. I mean, you look at countries across the board, as civilizations have improved, there is huge legislation behind the protection of human life, looking at human life equally where possible. And that's when you start looking at the features and qualities that make that possible. If everybody in a community was loving, respectful, friendly, honorable, true and genuine and so on, you would have clearly, without any dispute, a very, very healthy environment to live in. It would be brilliant. And you can imagine no one's going to come up to you threatening your life. No one's going to be harmful. No one's going to be dishonest. Everyone's going to treat you as a friend and be respectful. Have all these loving qualities. This is one of the big things in the biblical scripture. Jesus himself made a huge point about these moral codes, these moral behavior is the key to life. Be good to each other, be self-sacrificing, be friendly, be loving, and so on. All these amazing qualities, all coming under the quality of love. These are like sub-levels of love, if you like, ways that we can demonstrate that love have been not only clearly expressed thousands of years ago by Jesus, which at the time was kind of an amazing revelation. You know, he's not going down any other road like some of the leaders of the time, the Roman Empire, or some of the other forms of leaderships or armies, whatever, have these, you know, very different views. You know, it's about power, control, wealth, and so on. And they saw that as the epitome of success. But Jesus comes along with this very humble approach: be nice to each other, loving everything. That has been the most consistently proven case of the best way morally humans can live and flourish is through those principles. And that has never, ever changed from that date to now. That is consistently the case. And that's why we as Christians uphold to it so strongly, because it is so clearly evidential as the best way to be as humans. And this is something that Christ, even back 2,500 years ago, was really clear about, that being the key, you know, to morality for us as humans to flourish. So if you go against that basic grain and you come under any other form of premise, it's always going to be inferior by the deficit or the differences within it. You know, if you're talking about dominance over other, you've then got inequality. You know, why should somebody have far superior benefits at the expense of another? You know, you look at countries where there's leaders that people are wealthy, you usually always find it's at the cost of others. Why is that fair? You know, you could be born, you know, can you imagine if you were born in a country where you're living and your family are very poor, you're living in poverty for most of your days, and you've got people who are living luxurious lives, taking money and costs and wealth and possessions from you in order for they themselves to grow and prosper. Where does that ever get resolved? The inequality of that. So unless there is a moral principle that goes down to the level to every single human being treated and accepted equally and fairly, and having it all built around the whole, if you like, embodiment of the principle of love and all the features that come with it, we simply have an immediate breakdown of the way that humans live. And we see that historically, clearly evidential through the years.
I mean, I think I would disagree with that in the case that they were society, well, the Roman Empire existed before Christianity, you know, then eventually became the de facto religion of it during the following from Constantine the Great. And I mean, Gibbon's a bit dated to reference, but even he said that the 5 good emperors. So that was one of some of the best times of the Roman Empire. For instance, Antoninus Pius, they were, as far as I'm aware, there weren't really any major issues within Rome itself. But then
Really?
at a later point, when there was the Christian Empire, there were Christians were on the throne, there were issues like during the in the 5th century and others. So what I mean by that is that I wouldn't say that Christianity would exclusively make things better. Even just going to modern times, like if you look at very Christian countries that are very still faithful to the faith, they have things bad, like a lot of South American countries, compared to then like the Scandinavian countries that don't, they're culturally Christian, but a lot of them don't believe, but things seem to be quite good. So I can say that Christianity can definitely work towards that, but I wouldn't say Christianity is an exclusive hegemony to say that only Christianity can make a society better, wealthier, and healthier. And I think the only thing, the thing about love as well being, sure, I think that love was good. I think we've, as humans, again, it goes back to evolution. We've evolved to be a communal species, and we've tended to get rid of or weed of the more violent people, or the people with the kind of severe dark triad traits, because they're not conducive to a good society and they cause a lot of problems. But these traits keep popping up and again, which indicates that which to me indicates again that we don't have a faultless so if we're material creatures, problems that can arise, as happens with evolution, we get and us being organic creatures. So then sometimes we have these psychopaths pop up, and the reason, because most of us would resonate, was intuitively that love, we want to love, like the golden rule, as Confucius and Jesus both said. So treat others as you want them to treat you, kind of as a basic foundation. But they just are, if there were enough psychopaths around and they didn't think that, then that could destabilize the whole system. And that's what I'm saying. But then those psychopaths, to them, it would be normative not to love. It would be normative to be selfish. Now, that kind of society probably wouldn't work in the long term, which I can agree with. So that's why evolution would have weeded those kind of societies out eventually if they didn't change. That's just a very layman hypothesis. I can't give it any more foundation, but just brainstorming here regarding that.
In relation to objective morality, to really appeal to psychopaths is a red herring. None of us is going to appeal to people who are in coma to understand what morality is. None of us are going to. What is that?
What do you mean? What's the issue with the fallacy with the psychopaths? Appealing to as an example.
Being a psychopath is a medical condition.
Yeah, but that's what because for that, I would say, okay, I know, don't take this wrong. Because obviously Christianity will look at it differently, but like the UK, homosexuality used to be looked as
let's not conflate them both. No,
I'm not conflating them, but historically, homosexuality was considered a deviance medically.
Please, can we just stick to one point?
Homosexuality, let's keep that aside for a moment. But
I was trying to demonstrate that the society had one view of that at one point, and then that changed. That changed for whatever reasons. You might consider it's secular liberalism, whatever informed that decision, and that's that. But that same way, you could say, if you had a society that all of a sudden, it's fine to have psychopaths are fine, then they would just say, then it's not a condition anymore, it's fine, and we try and just ameliorate the conditions and try and make it work. Because at the moment we look at it as a bad thing, but that could change. That was kind of my point.
Either you're being insincere, which I'd like to think you're not, or you're not thinking through properly.
Okay.
Now the point we're making is not that some strange fellow somewhere could call psychopaths normal people. That's not the point we're trying to make. Of course, there could be some strange fellow somewhere who can call psychopaths normal people. But going by that, cancer could be normal. Blindness could be fantastic. We're not appealing to who votes for what. I'm just going to ask you, Ita, do you think being psychopathic is normal?
Normal? Not for our current society. No.
No. Do you ignore current society? Please go by your evaluation. Do you think being a psychopath is being normal?
It's being normal.
Hmm.
No, it's not normative at the moment. No?
Yeah. Okay. No. Don't add at the moment at the end. Don't add at the moment at the end. Please don't.
Okay, it's not normative. Yeah, I can say that.
It's not normative. Absolutely. In other words, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what we're saying. In other words, what we're saying is, so in other words, appealing to, when you consider psychopath to be not normal, i.e., who are psychopaths to be abnormal, to appeal to them in establishing what is good and bad is not appropriate, and therefore that would be a red herring. It'll be a rabbit hole. We shouldn't be going that.
I think I would disagree with that. I think I was trying to demonstrate that why I kind of hold to subjectivity regarding morality. I'm not saying that psychopaths are right or wrong, good or bad in that sense. It kind of just to show where I'm currently standing. So so what I mean is that I can't affirm objective morality at the moment. At the best I can do is intersubjective. So I can't definitively say, I wouldn't be definitively able to say that being a psychopath is evil for all time, as always, is a bad thing always and has always been. Well, if I believed in God and there's an objective, you can then you have an objective framework, you can say that. So it's kind of, actually, I'm saying that I have a limitation as far as I see at the moment versus, I guess, theists in this regard.
I think. Okay. I think okay. So I think this is where it'll be interesting. And I can do this step by step. I can ask you step by step. If you were living in the Roman Empire's first century, would you consider psychopaths to be normal? I can then go on to, if you had been living in the Greek Empire, pre-Roman Empire, would you consider psychopaths to be normal? I can do this right the way through. It's very simply the case that some things are demonstrably unstable states to be in, ill states to be in.
Unhealthy.
Yeah, and therefore I think you need to stick to that. You can't say in our time, and please don't.
No,
Very simply,
I have to. I'm a person living in now, and I'm formed by the experiences and things that I've heard and learned. So if I was,
maybe I'll put it this way, Ita. Maybe I'll put it this way. Yeah. So if I am holding a pen in my hand right now, if someone were to look at this and say, hey, and if I were to ask you, let's say between Ray and you, if I were to ask you, Ray, do you think I have a pen in my hand? And if Ray says, yes, I can see a pen in your hand. And if you say, no, I don't see a pen in your hand, let's say, and I know somehow that you have good vision and all those stuff and so on. In every other regard, you're the same. Let's say Ray and Ita, you're both the same. But Ray agrees that I have a pen. You think you say that I don't have a pen. I am going to reject your commentary on what good is, what bad is. In terms of life.
I don't think that's fair, because, for instance, the pen, you could ask me what color is that pen, and Ray says a color, and I'm actually colorblind, and my perception of the color is different. So that means I'm limited in the sense, I'm not normative, I guess, if you want to say. Most people can see that color. So I don't think that's necessarily a fair criteria in that sense. Maybe my perception is lacking, maybe.
Yeah, it's just the one thing I want to say to that is you have to make an evaluation on the basis of a non-defect position. If you've got a defect that's causing you to value things incorrectly, then that is not a basis that we could use as a feasible case.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's a presumption, though. I mean, we agree that psychopaths it's bad, but it's still a presumption baked into which I have picked up from living in society. I mean, if there wasn't a concept of a psychopath, maybe I wouldn't be able to say, I wouldn't be then able to note that out. I'd be able to just note certain behaviors maybe are bad, but
Yes.
not put them under an umbrella term, which we now have.
Yeah, I mean, Ita, please, you really need to slow down here. Please.
Yeah.
The point very simply is, it is a defect to be a psychopath. It's very simple. Someone who cannot perceive someone else's emotions is simply defective. It does not matter in which civilization he is, does not matter which time he is living in. None of those things matter. For example, if you speak and I can't hear, I have a defect. If you are throwing a stone at me and I can't feel, I have a defect.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you are expressing yourself emotionally in some way, but I can't comprehend, I have a defect.
That's not necessarily bad, though.
No one is talking.
Autism is another
No,
one,
there is
isn't it?
no carefully. No one. You are the only one. You are the only one who is using the term good and bad. I use the term normal, normative, normal. I use the term.
Oh, I was talking morally, not like statistically.
Yeah, and this is where perhaps you weren't paying attention to the exact point which was being made. The exact point which was made was.
Or the distribution of it. Okay, I see. Is that
the exact point which was made was, if someone is defective in some way, shape, or form, they're not going to be going to vote to choose a president. Let's say if I am someone in coma, no one is going to ask me, would you like Rishi Sunak as the prime minister, or would you like Keir Starmer as the prime minister? No one is going to come and ask me. No one needs my input if I'm in coma. It's as simple as that. That's the point we're making. But if you're going to make an argument, say, hey, but if you ask a person in coma, they could elect maybe Rishi Sunak, and that might be a better choice. I'm going to say, hey, let's only stick to people who are without defect, who are going to be impacted, and and that sort of stuff. That's all we are saying.
Oh, I see.
Please don't bring in.
Let me just see if I understood it correctly. So is it that when we're speaking about morality, we should not look to the psychopath, what they think and feel or whatever, to try and explain morality? Oh, I see. Yeah. No, that's fair.
Exactly the point. That's a simple point. Absolutely. So now coming back to the major argument, there are a couple of different points. Number one is, without God, we shouldn't be talking about morality. Whether you use the term intersubjective or whatever else, we should not be talking about morality, because without God, who is to say what anyone else needs to do, and who is to say that, oh, let's come together, study about this? There is no fundamental reasoning at all. As a matter of fact, even reason doesn't exist anymore, and therefore the entire area of what is that?
Did you say reason doesn't? If there's no God, there wouldn't be reason. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, without God, it's just a random set of things that we are experiencing. What is to say one way of thinking is reasonable, or coherent or sound logic, and what is to say another way of thinking is not sound logic. If there is no God, everything is random. I was a bit surprised that you were even earlier said that even your choices are deterministic.
I consider myself a determinist, or lean on the side of determinism at the moment.
On what basis?
Just because for me, because everything, if you go, so I, as I am now, I am my bodily, my organs, my cells, and everything. The cells I then have organelles, then that all the way to atoms, and so quantum, whatever. So if we can explain, I guess, if everything starts from like a quantum whatever thingy, if we can explain all the the processes of whatever happens in the quantum realm. I mean, I can't be more precise than that. Then if we know everything, then we could pretty much say whatever arrangement or position or organization something is flowing down from that quantum field all the way to me. I mean, that's how it would have been. It couldn't have been any other way. So, and I don't actually have a free will then to do, because like it was discussed before. So chemistry affects that, and chemistry is going all the way to physics and so on.
I see a few different ifs there. Humongous.
Yeah, I don't know that, but that's what I'm. Is there
anyone who knows?
I don't think that's what the philosophers, especially. I mean, there was one book recently by the Robert Sapolsky, I think, that he's on the. He's that. I don't know if you know him, but like a biologist, neuro scientist, I think, something like that. I can't remember which university, but in the US. But he released a book called, I think, Determined. If you just Google that, Robert Sapolsky, Determined, recently. I've not yet read it, but I've seen some of his interviews, and he takes the position of kind of hard determinism. I think it's either hard or soft. I think it's more on the hard determinism, and he's coming from more of a biological.
That doesn't matter who is taking what stance. I'm asking you: is there any evidence for anyone to come to the conclusion of this level of determinism?
I mean, I could ask: is there any evidence for free will?
No, we'll go there later. We'll go there.
No, I'm saying that. I'm saying that.
No, just begging the question. Just asking the question to the other side doesn't make your stance valid. The point I'm trying to say is
no.
True. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know. It's just an unreasonable, non-evidential state to be in. But please don't let anyone or yourself actually present that as some sort of a scientific view at all. It's utterly random, contra evidence in our daily lives. We have every piece of information, experientially speaking, to contradict that. Despite that, for you to suggest that remotely would be at the least ridiculous. But
I
at
think
most,
that's quite a strong assertion you're making at the moment.
It is.
I think
it is.
I think because I'd say my claim is weak, and it's more of a, at the moment, that's why I'm leaning on the side of, so, and more work needs to be done on that. But you seem to be definitively convinced that we have free will. So I guess I'd be interested
Can I
to
put it
hear.
another way?
Can
I put it another way, which is going to just complement in the way that Arrow is going, because I know where he's going with this, and it's great that we'd have to take this step by step. The big thing with this is that when we look at something like determinism, which is like a theory, it hasn't got any strong support that is clearly proving that theory in a very convincing manner. However, we have incredibly strong, clear-cut evidence to the contrary, where there is one clearly free will that exists, and it's an extremely hard argument to go against that. And two, like we were saying very early on, is then going back to the origin of this. If things are just random, it makes again.
Am I frozen at the moment? I think I lost Ray.
Ray is frozen.
It's Ray's.
Ray, you're back. We lost you briefly. 15 seconds. You need to repeat.
Sorry, Ray. Can I just quickly say? I'll just like to say, Arul, I'll just apologies if I'm coming off very pushy. I'm not. It's obviously your platform, so I don't want to come off very aggressive or confrontational. So apologies in that regard if your platform. So sorry, Ray.
That's okay, Ted. But what we're going to do, we are very respectful of everyone, and we appreciate your position. These are some emotive areas, and you're getting a little bit emotional, and that's we quite like that in a way, because we want people to get emotional. But what we also want people to do is really be open to ideas and the evidence that's put forward, and that's what we're going to try and help with. Because one of the biggest dangers with this than anything is if you live your life up until you say you're, 96, and then you pass at 96, and you've had a reasonably good life, and all the basis of your belief is on those theories were never proven, and yet there is some evidence to say there's more to life than the life you had, you've lost your chance. Because once you pass, you then can't do anything about it. It's beyond you. That's it. But what we're saying is that while you do have a life now, there is fantastic evidence that we have, which is hugely convincing from our perspective, which we would love to share with you, why we believe there is a God, why there is a purpose and there's more to life, and does explain these things about the origin of life, and does explain morality, and that morality has to be absolute, and it has to be from a supernatural source, because no one individual has a handle on what absolute morality is, but yet we all would agree that our sane, normal individuals with no defects would agree in principle what those concepts of morality is, and just the fact we have them does just point to the fact that there must be more to this than it just appearing randomly in every individual, and then somehow it's formed through some kind of random process. Because if that was the case, morality would be so diverse for individuals, but we don't see that. We see a huge consistency, and this is where, you know, the evidence that we're going to provide over time is really going to explain in a much more rational and coherent way that it is not just some random thing or just something that we somehow inherit, that just somehow miraculously becomes constantly consistent. I mean, it's a bit like having, I don't know, you make, 300 robots, you build them all up, and then you'll see all 300 of them all behave the same way. As you've got, you know, you put an incredible sophisticated microtechnology code in them, but allowing them to make choices, learn, choose from those choices, and so on. You would see randomness like you wouldn't see tomorrow. You'll see some robots doing one thing wrong. It'll be very, very random, but we don't see that with humans. We see a very consistent behavior with humankind. The only exceptions is when, as Errol quite rightly put out there, is when we have defects, when we have people that have issues, you know, that where things have gone wrong, you know, they may have health issues, they may have experienced some trauma, areas of trauma which has impacted them adversely, and therefore it's had a negative effect, and they can't therefore react normally as a normal human being. If you exclude those and people just objectively look at morally what is coherently true and makes sense for the value and benefit of mankind, it's a consistent agreement across all civilizations, across all history. The difficulty, of course, is as much as we agree it principally, it's a different thing exercising it, because we all make mistakes, we make bad choices, we get influenced by people that may, you know, if you believe there is no God and therefore your life is whatever your life is, you could go down the road and say, well, if this is the only life I'm going to have, I don't care about anybody else. I'm just going to be selfish, and I'm going to take advantage of others for the benefit of myself. And like I say, I could plausibly justify that because that's my life. But you can see holistically that it's just clearly not good, because it will just deteriorate morality on a very rapid scale if everyone started to be inclined to have that selfish thought that this is all there is and we just do whatever we agree on. We have chaos in no time at all. And sadly, we do have quite an element of that. You see so many people, but somehow we still intrinsically do see this very strong moral footprint that, for me, has been best described through the principle of love. And that's where we're then, you know, begging the question, where do you then think the source of that is? If there is a God that designed us and created us, that instilled us in his image, as it says in the scriptures, those qualities to provide us with all the ingredients and potential to have the best possible life humans can have, but with free will, which obviously needs to be in place, so that we can truly experience and appreciate life. Because, as you would have rightly said, we always, part of our lives, would agree that if we don't have choices, our life, our experience and value of life will deteriorate rather rapidly. If you can't choose where to go on holiday, what food to eat, what flavors, try this, try anything, and have those choices, have the free will to make choices, life is going to be, fall apart rather rapidly and be far less enjoyable without free will. And as the Arrow will point out, there is such fantastic evidence out there of free will, clearly evidential in society, that it really isn't an argument, I think, of any reasonable level to suggest it doesn't exist. I think it would be monumental for anyone to try and prove that free will doesn't exist, in my view. How are you there? If you wanted to,
yeah, I mean,
he's popped up.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I mean, I think I would still have some qualms about there being free will with a God existing. I think it's coming down to predestination, Augustine's predestination, things like that. But I think I'd leave that maybe for another time. But as my basic stance is, it still is. I'm not convinced of God. Therefore, I'm not convinced of objective morality at the moment, because I don't subscribe to moral realism. Like, there seem to be laws of logic that those seem to be self-evident or axiomatic, but there being moral laws outside, like even if humans didn't exist, these morals would exist there waiting to be discovered. So that's what I hold to. So that's why I'm in the intersubjectivity or circumstantial at the moment. And just historically looking, it seems to me that it's at the moment, it seems to how morals seem to play out is pretty much what Thucydides said, is that the weak suffer what they must and the strong do what they can. So it pretty much seems to be force behind enforcing whatever ideology or values you wish, largely, not always, but because even you can say Christianity didn't get to the top of the Roman Empire by force, but they were able to convince powerful people, the patricians, the senators, well, starting with the emperor Constantine the Great himself, and then able to suffuse into the institutions and then get rid of the pagans over time. So that's kind of where I still see it, but obviously there's more work to be done and research and study for myself to be done, which I've only started on. And the determinism versus free will, I mean, that's something people way above my pay grade philosophers are looking into. So that's something I'll need to obviously further study. But
if I gave you two cards, one is free will, one is determinism, and I would ask you to put generally, what would you give if you were a betting man, the more likely of the two that would make more sense to you? Would you think the evidence is more clearly that free will exists? Or do you think the evidence out there is more that determinism exists? And you've got to choose one or the other. Which would you say is a more sensible and evidential case of the two? If you had to pick one.
Right now, with what I know, I would still lean on the deterministic side.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Wow. That I didn't expect. That's a shock to me. But I can see you're craving for a response. So over to you.
Ita, do you believe in languages?
Believe in languages? What depends what you mean.
I mean, so we the very existence, the very usage of a language of communication goes against your predeterminism idea.
Okay.
So let me put it this way. Mm-hmm. What's your name?
Or do you want me to answer Ita?
Okay. How did you receive my communication?
Well, via the headphones.
But in terms of components, how did that come over to you?
Oh, well, I guess you spoke to me via shared language.
A language. Yeah. Was there any physical correspondence with that?
Well, the sounds are produced by your mouth parts.
Yes,
Vocal cords.
but did the sound clearly is a wave.
Yeah.
What is the correspondence between the wave that came over to you through your headphone and the word that I said?
Well, most so whatever wave you've uttered, and then it's been transformed via the electronic pathway, and my ears picked it up, and it's I guess it vibrates. Whatever.
No. Listen to me carefully, Ita. Okay, let me put it this way. So you understand the word name.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say let me use a full statement as an example. What is your name? You understand the meaning of the statement clearly, of course.
Yeah.
What is so tomorrow? If I said I'm introducing a new language, and in this new language, what is your name will be represented as unga per enna. Yeah,
Yeah.
it means the same. It's a new language, it means the same. So
Okay.
your response to both would be the same.
Yeah.
Even though it's a new language, you'll know how to respond as long as you know the language, new language. Even though the physical communication, the waves aren't the same.
Yeah, I don't see. You can produce different sounds to mean the same thing, couldn't you?
Yeah, very, very good. Different sounds could mean the same thing.
Yeah.
And a new sound tomorrow can mean the same thing if we agree. It has nothing to do with physical connectivity with God particles moving. It has everything to do with metaphysical agreement.
But it's still coming from your brain. You can't produce a
Metaphysical
language.
agreement?
No, the language is the human constructs. Our
Precisely.
languages are human constructs, and they rely on the brain, and the brain relies on neurochemistry, and that relies on, we're going down all the way to the particles eventually.
I think you're not okay. Let's okay. So are you I'm assuming are you familiar with this idea called encryption decryption? You're familiar with the what is that thing called, the Enigma, as the machine used in the Second World War.
World War II, yeah.
World War II, yeah. The idea behind Enigma is really to translate words from one language, i.e. English, into another language, which is a secret code. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
And the secret code could change any moment, depending on some configurations. Secret code could change any moment. But as long as you know what the configuration is, people can at the other end understand. And this communication depends on a configuration, but has no correspondence in physical reality in terms of atoms and God particles and so on. Things aren't connected in that manner, if you see what I mean. Things are connected in a metaphysical manner, which is not on a physical level. With me so far?
Yeah, but you need the physical to produce the metaphysical.
No one is denying that. No one is denying that. But what I am rather saying, no one is denying the fact that you need the physical to produce the sound that I'm producing. No one is denying that. What I'm rather saying is, today, okay, let me simply put, for example, I can have a new language where all English A's are, let's say, English G's if I wanted to tomorrow. I can interchange A and G alone, swap A and G alone if I wanted to. If we both agree, we can swap B and C if we wanted to. As long as we know, both of us know what exactly our scheme of things is, what exactly we are swapping, it'll still make sense. You'll know what to reverse. Yeah. and we can choose any combination that we want. This has nothing to do with how the atoms and molecules are combined or
I
are
would say
present in this.
I would say it would, because the decision to do that is based on atoms, or even down to the quantum level. I'd say that I can
The
say more, but
decision to do
that's
what?
decision to do anything, decision to produce certain sounds, because those sounds wouldn't exist if there weren't humans to speak them. So language wouldn't exist. The human languages wouldn't exist without humans. So it's dependent on the physical, and that's again, we're going down the pathway into physics. I guess that's why I
Yeah.
would still lean on the deterministic side.
No, we're not going down the pathway of physics. We are going down the pathway where we need to shut down the stream right now, because nothing would make sense. Because anyway, you're not speaking to us. It's just atoms and molecules determining the sound that is coming towards us. There is no intelligent conversation between us.
That's what is reducible to, yeah, the atoms.
Yes, and therefore this conversation is meaningless.
It may be, yeah.
What do you mean? Maybe is that the life you want to live in?
No, in a godless universe, you could probably say that there's no purpose. So we have nihilists who don't see any purpose.
No, my question to you is, in your view on, in your view of determinism, you're not making sense. You're just causing noise. Purely because that's how the atoms are today, right now.
Yeah, that could be.
And therefore, can we say ours isn't a communication or a conversation? It's just, like how, if I had water here, and if I put a piece of lemon inside, water level increases. That's pretty much what's going on right now. There's no intelligent communication. Is that the world you think we live in?
No, no, because it makes
sense to us.
So it makes sense to us. So that's what I mean. It makes sense to us. So, but we're dependent on those. So we're dependent on our biology. Our biology depends on our chemistry, up to going to the physics. So that's what I'm saying. It's going downstream of that then we produce the language. And it might be that actually there's no point. I wouldn't affirm that there's any point or purpose to it. So I wouldn't give universe or existence a purpose necessarily, as I currently am. But it would seem to be the case that we, downstream of that, us humans can produce these sounds, and they produce different languages when combined.
Ita, dependence is not the same as reason for causation.
That's what I mean. It's caused by that ultimately. I do mean that in a causational
so you don't
relationship.
So you are really suggesting that you are not speaking to me and speaking to us right now. It's just the atoms are moving around in a particular way, and therefore some noise is coming over from you. Is that what you're really saying?
Yeah, it could be the organization of the atoms. As I'm speaking, they are going in certain arrangements, and that's
no. Ignore the fact of what happens after you are speaking. I am asking, is your speaking even just atoms determining what is happening with your mouth and what is happening with your brain and speaking?
I am made of atoms.
No one is denying whether you're made of atoms or not. We are asking if the atoms in the entire universe is making you make some sound right now, or are you trying to hear us and respond to us in a particular way?
Well, I wouldn't say the atoms of the universe. It's just in this locality, I guess, if you want to specify atoms.
Well, everything
I'm gonna throw it another way, because I do like where I was going with this, but maybe if I put it another way, and I think it's just when the penny will drop, hopefully at some point, that the reality kicks in. If things are determined, irrespective of what Al says to you, your way that you're going to behave is already going to be determined. What Al is doing is changing that position, that now, because he has said a certain thing, you now are not going to go down the road previously where the brain's going to determine an action. It's now going to change on the basis of the response of Arrow, which you're now reacting to. So you're making it's like a shift change in you based on something outside of you impacting you. And do you believe that actually is what's happening?
Not precisely. So how I kind of envision is, so if Arul right now said hi, and I responded with a hello, so that is a certain certain arrangement of going down to the quantum level. Versus if Arul said yo, and I might answer with hi. So that is a different organization or permutation, almost, if you want to put it. So it will be determined in that sense.
Ita, please, you really need to. Boy, I can't. Okay. This is getting phenomenally ridiculous. Ita, let me put it this way: if I were to ask your name,
Arul, may I just stop? I will just caveat that with I've only just started on studying this, so as I said, is a leaning on the side of it. I don't have a strong conviction of it, but I'm leaning on the side of it.
It'll be lovely.
I might not be able to give you a thorough enough answers to all the questions.
Okay.
So in that regard, I need to do more studying myself.
No, please do more thinking before you go down the road, please.
But you're asking the question, so I'm trying to be as sincere in my answers as I can.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Very simple. Very simple. If I ask what your name is, are you saying you could give any number of different answers depending on how the atoms are moving around you right now? For example, if a friend comes over to you, the answer would be different. If a neighbor comes over near you and the molecules are moving in a different way, the answer would be different. Is that what you're really suggesting right now?
Yeah, but those are, so it's dependent. So it's a causal relation going back to the beginning of the universe.
Absolutely, and that is precisely my point.
That's my point. All of that is causal relationship down to this very point.
Ita, one second, Ita, please bear everything that you have in your mind as what the causal relationship is in the background and answer my question. Please bear everything in your mind, but don't tell those things to me. Just give me the answer to the question I'm asking, please.
If I can.
Are you really saying, if I asked you the question, what your name is, depending on whether your friend comes near you or your enemy comes near you or someone else comes near you, the answer would be different? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, depending on what's happening, yeah.
Or in other words, you will never produce the consistent result in terms of saying, my name is Ita, come what may. That's what you're saying. And that's the world you want to live in.
Under certain circumstances, I might produce that. Under others, not. I guess the issue is that we only have one universe, so we don't have anything to compare to run a simulation of these things to see.
This has nothing to do with simulation at all, Ita. You just need to go and report your finding to the government authorities, to the regulators, to everyone, for example, who depends on signatures, who depends on witness account, all that I say is true, and all the promises and so on. You just need to tell them, hey, don't worry, ignore all of these things. What I will see will purely depend on how the atoms are moving around me. This is ridiculous to the uttermost extent, and I can't believe a sensible man.
Take that one step in a seriously dangerous way would be if it's purely just the randomness of what's just been working in your head. Then who's to say that whatever you do is right or wrong? So you're basically freeing yourself from any kind of level of accountability.
And I just need to work out what kind of atom movements is needed for you to transfer all your bank balance to my account.
Well, that's a very tricky thing to try and figure out. There's so many moving parts in that.
But potentially doable on your theory.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it's not just that; it's going to the quantum level. I would say, because
you can go any level you want. If you are suggesting,
my point was just that at the moment seems to be the most fundamental level for that.
But it doesn't matter. It does not matter. My point simply is, I'd like to think that whether Ray comes today or Ray comes tomorrow or Ray comes with 10 other people or whatever else and comes to me, I'd be able to say, Ray is my friend. And I wouldn't for a moment think, oh, if Ray comes with 1,000 people, maybe my mind would make me somehow say Ray is not my friend.
Oh,
That'll
on
be
a
ridiculous.
Thursday. If I come to you on a Thursday, you're not my friend.
Thursday that I'll say Ray is not my friend. Or if I touch electricity, or if it is ridiculous in my mind that you are saying truth statements do not exist. Utterly ridiculous.
I don't think that's what I said. The truth statements don't exist.
That's not what you said. That is the obvious inference from what you said.
I think there's a different category we're talking about. Because I believe that there is a descriptive reality, and we can make truth claims about those. I'm not quite sure how that ties into determinism necessarily.
If everything is determined, there is no such thing called making a truth statement.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think I have to disagree with that hard. I don't see that. That doesn't really make logical sense to me.
Okay,
we exist in a universe determined of free will, but there are things that. I mean, there's another argument if universe isn't real. That I'm not going the Matrix path, but there's things that exist. So I can see that things can move at the speed of light is the maximum thing you can move at. Blah blah blah. So that would be a truth claim of the universe.
You might be much. I'm 40 years of age. You might be a much younger man. So I don't know if you live in a paper-based. Have you ever signed paper documents?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so that okay, fine. And you have a signature for yourself to identify yourself. Are you confident that you would be able to actually sign the same signature 100 times in the future over the next 200 days?
No.
You're not.
No.
Well, I mean, of course, if
you mean reproduced exactly the same or
not exactly the same. No one is.
Oh yes, then yes.
Within your physical limits of your
within the physical limits.
Yes,
assuming you're not assuming you're
confident of that,
yeah. But how can you be? If the atoms are going to determine how you're going to speak, how you're going to act, and everything else, who knows what your signature will turn out to be tomorrow?
Yeah, that could be. If I was very ill, then that would change it. Oh, sorry, my camera just dropped. Just give me a moment.
Look, your camera is trying to say something to you.
I've never had in my life. This is the first.
That was the
camera is trying to say something to you. Sorry.
That was determined. Of course it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's happened again. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh,
just go on.
Kicking in there.
Yeah. The point is, very simply, barring extreme circumstances such as maybe some sort of an accident or some sort of illness of some sort, beyond some extent, we'd like to think that you'd be able to reproduce a signature within limits, of course. No one is going to exactly ask for the same whatever, but within reason. That's an assumption that we have been having for a very long time in human history. Very long time. And of course, signatures have taken different shapes over centuries. But this is something we know of. Within reason again, unless there is an extreme change in circumstance, we work on the assumption that I'd be able to go anywhere and say who I am, from where I come, to whom I was born, and where I was born in, what kind of work I do, all these sorts of things, which are what are called truth statements. And I'd like to think I'd be able to repeat truth statements 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, if there is a need for me to repeat those many number of times. And for you to say, what I'm speaking is a function of how the cells are moving around me, God particles are moving around me, essentially would be ridiculous, because then I simply cannot suggest anything about future.
And another thing to add to that, if you decided tomorrow to rob a bank, okay, you could put your cane that you're explaining here to say this is just a determined molecules, nothing to do with me. I didn't make that decision. It was just something that was predestined, determined for me, and therefore you have no case to put me in jail and make me accountable for my actions. So please go away. But I think the police have gone.
That's interesting because that's actually the point Robert Sapolsky makes in that in his book, I think, and in the interviews I've seen him, that we couldn't actually blame criminals.
Are you kidding me? And do you really think that is a feasible case? Do you think that has got any kind of?
I'm skeptical. I mean, I've not read his book yet. I've only seen him interviewed.
But Dieter, this is not this is an area where you shouldn't be skeptical. This is an area where you should reject this very idea. Maybe I don't know who this fellow is, but this fellow is perhaps
Arul, may I interrupt? Just
sure.
I'm exploring the thing, so it's a thing currently I'm thinking about. But it seems even outside of me that even people that are hard determinists, philosophers, they seem to behave that as if we have free will as humans. So it could be just even a condition of us being humans that we cannot act but in the belief that we have free will, God or not. So that's something that's why I'm also a bit skeptical about the claims of we shouldn't punish criminals whatsoever because it was determined they was going to do that. But that's something I need to look into.
Somebody just stares me in the face.
I'm really surprised that you're even insisting this point. Now let me ask you this again. Could you reproduce your signature within reason identical to what your original signature is in a bank document, barring exceptional circumstance like illness or whatever? Could you be able to reproduce your signature 1,000 times over the next 1,000 years? Sorry, the 1,000 days.
Did you say identical?
No, good
within
enough.
reason.
Anyone examining it would agree it's the same signature.
You know, in the way we normally use signatures.
You know, where if you've got a document, you have to get it passed through like custom control or whatever. You do a signature, they compare it to a previous signature. As long as it is resembling close enough, doesn't have to be precise, they would accept
I'd have a high degree of confidence in my ability to do that, but I wouldn't say it's 100%.
I'm on the basis of what?
Sure.
The basis of what? What is your confidence on the basis of?
See, I guess that's when I would lean into Hume, the empiricism. So based on my past experience, that's how I would go into.
That's fine. Past experience is good enough.
It's causally related, but that's obviously what I think.
Based on your experience of reality. Based is what you're really saying. Based on your experience of reality.
I don't deny reality existing.
Sure. But the point is, so you're reasonably confident based on experience so far. Do you think you're being a blind faith person in claiming this, or do you think this is a reasonable claim that you're making?
Because so if I believe that there is the material world I'm living in, and I've been signing signatures before, I mean, I guess that's where it might be a problem of induction kind of comes in.
Please stick to simple reality.
But that's what I'm saying. It's how do I know? Yes, I'm basing on past experience, but that is the Hume kind of raised the problem of induction. Like, how do I know I can do the signatures again 1,000 times? 1,000 times over 1,000 days. So I'm relying on past experience with that, I guess. So that's
my question is that confidence reasonable, or is that confidence some sort of a belief statement that you're making without a base?
I think it's reasonable because I'd have to be a complete skeptic otherwise, and
exactly.
How am I walking around as a an academic skeptic?
That's your response so far is good enough. Please, I'm just going to try and compare and contrast what you have just said for these questions that I've asked so far with the idea of determinism. Note carefully, with determinism, anything and everything happens because how the atoms are moving around since the time of the beginning of everything and so on.
Yes.
And therefore, very simply, depending on how the movements are happening and so on, tomorrow ignoring even assuming you are quite healthy and so on, you may not have the same signature, even if you wanted to. Your hand is and it goes somewhere else because the atoms are in a different way. Do you believe in that? Because that's what determinism would lead you to in terms of automatic inference.
Can you just repeat that, please, again? I think I lost the thread of that at the end.
Sure. I mean, you have confidence, reasonable confidence based on reason that you can reproduce, barring exceptional circumstances that you can reproduce. But that contradicts your claim of determinism, because according to determinism, you can't have this confidence because your signing ability, even if you are of good health, even if many things are the same around you, depends on various other God particles moving around in a particular way.
But that's where I said the causal relationship to the beginning of time is the universe is pretty much playing out a certain way. If things had been slightly
but you don't but you don't know which way it is. I mean, there's no function, there's no equation, and therefore you can't say how it is going to play out the very next moment.
Exactly, I don't know. That's the point.
And therefore, if I were to ask you, can you reproduce the signature? You can only say, I haven't got a clue. If I ask you, would you know who you are the very next second? You can only say, I haven't got a clue. If you are a determinist.
What I mean is that I exist in a universe currently where I would be able to reproduce those things.
But you don't know the equations. You can't say this. No, please don't say.
I mean, I can't say for sure, but that would be my prediction, that I would exist in a universe where I can reproduce.
So here is the choice before you.
I can't confirm that, obviously, because I can't see into the future.
Precisely. So here is the choice you have to live. I'd like to think, and I'd like to say, and I'm sure Ray would say something similar, and I'm sure most people in this world would say something similar, unless they've read some of the books you've read. Most people would be able to say, hey, I know my signature, I'll reproduce my signature. It's a simple thing to say, within reason. Within
informal settings and otherwise, yeah. Because
this is how the world is running.
No, because I behave from my day to day as if I have free will. But when I recently started thinking about it harder, like, how do I know I have free will?
Here's a good one for you, Etta, then. Where we can say you can replicate your signature, let's just, for the argument, say this is somehow been determined. It's all been pre-programmed that you're going to have a signature, and you're going to have that signature. You're going to always be consistent with that signature. Free will comes along and says, hey, actually, I'm going to change my mind. As of next month, I'm going to change my signature. So you always seem to have the ability to go against whatever your past experience is, that you could say is determined. As much as that will play a part in your choices, you can still somehow go completely against it. Like, for example, you could have always gone to a beach holiday your life, and it's determined that you're going to always go to a beach holiday. All of a sudden, you might wake up one day, you know what, I just fancy going to, I don't know, Norway and see the fjords. It's sort of a lack of beach there, and it's like -20. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just the only thing that makes sense, that would have these kind of strange irrational choices, if you like, of where you change your mind, is that there must be free will going on to allow you to have this amazing ability to choose, to change choices, and so forth and so forth. And we see that so consistently with people that we can almost rely on people making choices that they may change because one day they decide, okay, I'm going to now do X, Y, Z. And this is really, if anything, a demonstration of free will, far more significantly than anything else. So to go down the road that somehow we're all controlled by a predetermined process that just somehow works in our brain, it just goes completely against it, and that means the reality of all this is really screaming out free will. But if I was, I have to look at it any other way, I would struggle how anybody could come up with any kind of argument to say that we don't have free will. I think it's an incredibly difficult proposition. Otherwise,
for me, when I hear what you're saying, it is ringing alarm bells, and I really need to, as an acquaintance, I really need to warn you. I come from India. In India, many different form of astrology-like things are practiced.
Yeah.
Which are really rudimentary forms of what you're claiming right now. Based on where Saturn and Uranus and everything else is going to be my future. This is, and I know people's lives have been destroyed because there is no such thing called, okay, well, we can pray and ask God for help. Or even ignoring a theistic worldview, there is no such thing called, let me work harder. Let me try this. Maybe there is a way to solve this. None of those things matter. Marriages fall apart because people just say, hey, no, we are not a good match. Doom, gone. Terrible things happen when you get into this deterministic mode of thinking. And I can say what you are describing as even what you are exploring is a radical form of a very mild thing which already destroys lives. The radical thing would make you go mad, and therefore we have to warn you before you get too deep. If you're going to live a life where you are even pondering that you may not be able to sign documents properly in the future, it'll lead to utter chaos rather soon. Don't even venture.
Yeah,
please don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fair if you have that viewpoint, but I think I would still continue to look into it because I do find it interesting, and I've recently started thinking about that. But I think I did want to say, I mean, I've because still the third point isn't about Jesus' resurrection. I mean, I don't know if I've taken quite a bit of your time, so I don't know if you want me to hop off and someone else come on, and maybe I'll come another day to talk to you about the third point on Jesus' resurrection.
No, I think that might be a good idea, because I think we've given you quite a bit of things to think about. And what I would just as a takeaway is two major points that I think would be really valuable to you. The first one is that to look at James Tor, if you want to make a note of his name, and look at the challenge of how from single life form can produce multiple life forms, this evolutionary biological process.
What was his name again? Oh, is that the link?
James Tor, Tour.
Yeah, I'm pasting a couple of links there.
Brilliant, thank you, Al.
Brilliant. I'll take.
That's it. The 60-day challenge. I couldn't remember. That's it. The 60-day challenge. It's phenomenal when you watch that. I mean, it will absolutely change a lot of your views at this stage. It's just phenomenal, and it's just fantastic research he's done. And very honest guy, incredible shit. And he said he's had the very top scientists come on and take on the challenge, and he has debunked them all, profoundly. So it's an extremely good record. Yeah, and the other article again, great reading. So that's number one. And there's number two is to really have a serious think about this whole thing about determinism. Do we truly have free will? Have a bit more thought about that around and surrounding morality. And welcome back next week. Let us know what your findings are when you're ready. If you're not ready next week, when you're ready, come on board and share what your research is and what you've discovered. And we'll take it from there, if that's okay. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I might not be quite next week that I come with more points to the first and second. I think I will be
on the spot.
no, yeah, because I'll be very interested to talk about the Jesus resurrection as well. Like in that, but I think maybe I'll come next week and we can spend time talking about that.
Do the Jesus resurrection piece and then the other stuff for the following.
Yeah, that could the other one, the first, morality and around single cell. That could be in another later point, because I mean that'll probably need some reading up on.
Sure.
But yeah, thanks for hosting me, guys.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. And thanks for your patience and good manners through the discussion. So appreciate that, and have a great evening.
I echo the same.
Thanks.
Yeah. Lovely to see you. I echo the same.
Likewise.
Lovely to see you. Yeah.
Okay,
bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wow. So, AC.
We have Abby waiting.
Abby waiting. Super patiently. I'd be very more than anything of his response or thoughts of our previous discussion. But over to you, Abby. Welcome to the stage.
Hi guys. How are you guys?
A little bit tired, I started I don't know if you anyway, I had a stream before this. I was very, very busy, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, I had a late night last night also.
I was human, by the way, because he doesn't sleep. Apparently, he works 24/7.
and you've got a newborn.
He's got a newborn. Yeah.
And you've got
some additional work. He's obviously not doing enough.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I can kind of empathize with your previous guest, Ita, because when I was like 17 or something, I read a book by Sam Harris called Free Will. And for a long time, I was convinced that we lived in like a deterministic universe. But then I came across like just new philosophies like idealism, which is why I put in the comments backstage, I was like, you could have asked him to think of a triangle and then challenge me to, through observing matter, to then see the same triangle you're seeing in your head. It's just not possible. So clearly there's something going on in your consciousness that doesn't map onto the space-time continuum completely, so yeah. But I mean, I kept thinking that there was no free will until very recently. I think I even came on a stream and put forward a challenge, and then after multiple sessions with Arul, just I myself naturally just thought, okay, if God exists, in the beginning there was only God, so anything he does is just random because there is nothing else other than him to influence him to do something. And so God can have true free will, and if he has free will, he can assign, or he can make us what's the word I'm looking for? He can give us autonomy over our own will, so we can make our own decisions, obviously within reasons. We do have limitations, but you can be locked inside a cage, but in that cage you can still move around. So yeah, that's my thoughts on your previous discussion.
Yeah, I actually like it, looking at it this way, that God provided us with the manual, but we still have the ability to choose from the manual how we operate ourselves. But if we do it via the manual, which is the one that put us together in the first place, then we're in a good place. But if we start thinking, well, I ain't going to look at that manual, I'm going to throw that away and come up with my own version of a manual, we are going to go down a very slippery road, because if we're not the source of who we are, then we're going to be far less able to get the best of our lives, because obviously the creator of us, God that created us, knows us far better than ourselves, and we can testify that as Christians, as we follow precisely as what we see that God is provided through his word in scripture and in our lives as well, that it's phenomenally perfect in the way that it absolutely gives us the best possible life, and we don't fail to be successful if we follow his blueprint. It's when we go down some other road, some other options, when we start to see things starting to fail. But part of why we are so like strong in our belief, because it is so phenomenally powerful in how it impacts us.
Yeah. I think, so I agree with what you just said now, but that's kind of why some of the things that were said earlier I wasn't very comfortable with. I think, and I know we've talked about this a few times, about like discovering moral virtues. I just don't think it's possible. I think if God exists, if morality exists, it needs to be revealed through God, because by definition, good is what God wills. So anything other than that, I think it's I don't know. I just don't see the point in why you I don't know. What's your purpose in trying to have these kinds of conversations where you talk about, oh, we can discover that love is a moral virtue?
Yeah. So, and that's a nice point, Abby, is, if there's no God and we're just looking at what is one person's view subjectively versus another, it just really wouldn't go anywhere. It would be just fall apart rather rapidly. But we don't see that. We have incredible evidence of consistency of this inherent moral code, if you like, that we have, that just points to, again, a very clear purpose for us as humans, to live a life that is purposeful, is driven. I mean, I know we've got some issues here. The Bible talks about, fallen man, and we do wrong things, we make wrong choices, but we intrinsically have this, what we see is the image of God, that if we follow that, it will lead us, down the right path. But at the same time, he also addresses fallen man and how we can, most importantly, once we start to appreciate God is real, then to understand what is the purpose. And there is a purpose, that he will ultimately bring us back to how he designed and created us, to be perfect, to live forever. And with free will and choices we've made, we've gone down the wrong path. He wants to bring us back, and they will ultimately do that. And that's where we see that whole end-to-end storyline that God has presented from creation, to then demonstrate how through history he was, working with his creation, trying to lead in a certain path to create that, ideal world that man can live according to how God has purposed. But unfortunately, we got led astray, made the wrong choices, and we're now, suffering the consequences. But it's not something that God has given up on. He has, and as he has put through in prophecy, that there is a purpose and plan to resolve this and bring us back to how God originally purposed man to live, which is forever in perfect harmony with each other. So that's part of the reason why we're doing the stream, because we really want to share with people that this is such an absolutely, real, real way of reality, is really becoming the most significant and convincing way of looking at life. Is that once you have God clearly demonstrated in your life, supported by his word that then explains how it all pieces together with a purpose, it just transforms people significantly. And for me and Errol and all of us Christians, we not only have a very coherent explanation of how God's plan fits together and how it all reconciles in a way to explain the beginning, the history, and the purpose of humankind. We also have that inclusive with real life experience of God. When we pray to him and when we follow the example of Christ in our lives, we have just a phenomenal response of God in our lives. That's just too overwhelming. It's as overwhelming as a believing that I've got a pair of glasses on my head. It's that It's that significant. It's not a theory. It's not a, maybe there's a God. It's just so incredibly powerful when you have millions of people around the world with shared testimonies and agreements that have that same experience. It's for us the most compelling way to know, not only that there is a God, but it's a God as we would see from the Bible, that we see, which is the Christian view, is the true connection to the God of the universe, not through any other means or source. So I went on a bit there.
Do you think you answered my question?
Sorry, I did go on a bit. Can you
That's
repeat
all right.
yourself, Abby?
My question quite simply is, if we can agree that morality can only be discovered through a divine revelation, then using reason or observing, what our intuitions say, to try and come up with moral virtues, why do you guys try to use that as a way to, like, what's the purpose even in doing that? It just seems, because at the end of the day, like a Muslim could say, my God doesn't love non-believers, but that's okay because God does whatever he wants, and then in his head, Islam is true in his head, so it's okay, and at the end of the day, that's compatible with the definition of morality that we can all agree to. So what's the point in going through all this back and forth about establishing love to be a moral virtue, like from a secular point of view?
Very simply, Abi, the point is, it can help people cross a hurdle. And that is exactly the intent. It may not, it clearly won't necessarily be conclusive in helping people come to a conclusive destination, but it certainly covers a huge distance in terms of helping them tend towards at least exploring more. But I mean, I'll give you a simple example. For example, if I'm walking into a bookshop, or if I'm walking into a room and there are plenty of books that are arranged somewhere on a shelf, without even realizing what could lead to a good arrangement of books, if the books have been arranged in a particularly good manner through some science, which I'm not aware of, I might perceive the effect of it. I might even appreciate without even knowing the science behind it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I follow you. Yeah.
Yeah. In other words, when there is some science behind some decisions, human beings seem to have the capacity to appreciate. Not everyone, but many more sensible people, I'd like to say, seem to appreciate the effect of the science without even knowing the science. So the effect of the science can draw them close to at least exploring the science. And then ultimately, when the science is also understood, it can help them seal the deal. And that is where we are coming from. It seems like, to any thinking human being, I mean, let's put it this way. You do say that Muslims are, for example, not every Muslim. There are many Muslims who won't want to be violent and so on. I don't know the statistic, but let's say there are many. The point simply is, even if they think that the Islamic Allah wants them to be really bad and so on, I am fairly convinced, if, for example, we pull them into a conversation at Speaker's Corner, they will be embarrassed to admit that is their mindset. If you see what I mean. I think what is intrinsically built into human beings, which is what we call conscience from God and that sort of stuff, will steer them towards what seems to be objective morality.
Yeah, but then there's people like Ali Dawah or like like the Muslim skeptic who will proudly own the fact that there's apostasy laws and you know, severe punishments and stuff like that. You don't need to argue about the facts on them. You just need to argue on whether the facts are good or bad, and they'll just say, "Oh, it's fine."
True. I mean, very simply, I'm okay. I'll make a few points. I think deep down in my heart, I think if Ali Dawah is pushed to a corner, I think he will, when pushed to a corner, I think he would reconsider what goes through his mind purely based on these observations. But anyway, my point is, the arguments we're making are not necessarily for Ali Dawahs. If people are sort of deceptive, or people don't care about, you know, matching things up with reality, then we clearly would go the way you are suggesting, which is, you know, purely based on facts. Tell me where, you know, tell me what the reason for you to think there is a God, sort of stuff, you know.
Yeah,
So different approach for different people.
Do you think
the Muslim faith, which is one of the cases where you could eliminate that as even being plausible, is it has fundamentally in the core of its teachings, which it claims is directly from God. It's not a second-hand opinion. It's directly from God. Has horrendous teachings that just go against the grain of any kind of form of decent morality. It's shocking how, and when you see an argument, when those arguments are raised, they don't deal with them head on. They kind of skirt around it, avoid, oh, well, it doesn't mean this, and different context, and it's just phenomenal, because when you rightly look at this in detail and just clearly look at the verse, and there are many of them, there's not just one or two, there's quite a lot. It just flies in the face of any kind of sense that if that was going to be from God, then that makes God really not a particularly nice God. I mean, it's just one of those things that realistically, when you do research, and I was done an awful lot, I've done quite a lot myself over the years, and you know, there are many people that have been putting forward from a Christian perspective arguments against the Islamic faith because of the serious concerns that when people follow it don't realize the kind of teachings that it supports and why it therefore creates the issues it does create. It shouldn't take too much once you do the research to say, well, that cannot be from God. That's something we can quite quickly eliminate. Let's move on to, you know, look at other cases for God.
But Ray, I can do the same thing with Christianity. There are many things that are permitted in Christianity that, in my own heart, I feel like they are wrong and they are not loving.
Okay.
Things like eating animals. I've talked to Aurel about this a lot. But, you know, if we're going to go by appealing to intuitions and appealing to fair-minded people, do you think I'm a fair-minded person?
But like I said, I think we discussed this in the past, Abhi. I don't think the intuition-based appeal would work for every detail of the objective morality. I think it works on the clearest of cases.
The clearest, in your opinion?
Or should we say it clearly works in some, in regards to some aspects of objective morality, which is what I'm calling, you know, retrospectively clearest of cases.
I don't know if we're speaking the same language. When it applies to some aspects of objective morality. Can you unpack that? Like, what do you mean by objective morality? And
I do not think there is going to be any fair-minded person anywhere who's going to argue against the efficacy of love being ultimate morality. Love being.
Give me some examples of people who you think would argue that love is not. Just give me an example.
That love is not.
That love is not a moral virtue.
Only, I mean, in my mind, only those who deny even other facts just to make sure their worldviews stand up to scrutiny. in other words, for me, it seems like even someone somewhere deep down in a forest, as part of a tribe, who might even have wanted to kill me, as long as there is an opportunity to have a calm conversation, would be willing to agree and accept, and even change his ways to accept love is the greatest virtue human beings have come across in our entire lives. We hear this, there are plenty of missionary stories that we hear of where, essentially cannibalistic tribes, or at least tribes who want to kill others who are not part of anyone other than their tribe, if even they approach them, eventually actually becoming a loving community based on essentially beginning to appreciate love.
But the thing is that love isn't extended towards all living beings, though. It's only extended till a certain amount.
I think, Abhi, we went through this earlier, and I know it'll be. I'm not saying you're deliberately forgetting. I'm not saying at all. I know you personally.
Sure.
I'm not saying you're deliberately forgetting, but I can very well say it might take a while for something to sink in when a contrapoint was in our minds for a very long time. And so we went through this. Remember, we said, if there is a lifeboat, and if you have space for just one more person or entity, and if you have your father, about to drown, and a dog, your own dog, similar size, about to drown, we said you will end up choosing your father. In other words,
but if someone chooses their dog instead of their father, what do you think of them?
I don't think a fair-minded person would get there. I think
why not?
I think based on my experience, I don't. To me, this is like discussing the determinism. In my experience of having come across so many people from very many different cultures, very many different religious persuasions, very many different age groups and whatever else, I'm confident. Unless they are nutters explicitly, and by nutters what I mean is
that's a human construct in the way you just said.
No,
someone's a nutter, someone is crazy. These are all human constructs.
No, you didn't let me finish. Unless someone who is a nutter, and by a nutter what I mean is he'll have a tendency to deny facts, even to make a point that he wants to make. Unless I'm talking, and there are crazy people like this.
So it's rational. You're saying if I know all the facts, it's rational to pick my father over a dog.
Well, it's who. What should I mean? Let me put it this way. I mean, rational is rational. What I have in mind. What I have in mind is someone who knows what truth is and wants to stick to it. And by that, what I mean is someone who won't deny what is obviously true in his awareness. I'll give you a simple example. Gaddafi claimed that he was the chief servant of whatever else. I don't know if you've come across the titles that Muammar Gaddafi used when he was still around. He used some.
No, I was very young back then.
Yeah, you see, this is why you should speak to old people like me. Muammar Gaddafi, when was it? 2007, 8 or 9 or something? Yeah, so maybe about 16, 15 years ago. Of course, you would have been maybe not even in your teens at that time. It's remarkable how quick time passes. Anyway, this fellow Gaddafi from Libya essentially claimed for himself, similar to the North Korean Kim Jong-un. Claimed various titles for himself. Ultimately, for anyone who observes details and understands details, he was a dictator. He was really a dictator. But the official titles that he gave himself were ridiculous. Things like, I am the chief servant of everyone in the country. And as if everyone else is going to think, oh yeah, you are in fact my servant, please come and clean my house. Clearly he won't come. Clearly is going to shoot you if you even go near him. But he claimed, titles, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The point is, but that kind of person, I don't know what he'll do. I don't even want to guess what he would do, because these are people who deny basic facts in reality. I'm not talking about them.
Okay, so but the thing is, when he calls himself the chief servant of everyone, that basically being a servant, it has a definition that we can say, okay, does he tick the box of what it means to be a servant? But in the instance of, there's a lifeboat and you either pick a human or a dog, both the animal and the human, they both mean a lot to you, but you only get to pick one of them. These are two completely different scenarios.
My point very simply is this, Abhi, and that is, when I ignore, I'm talking about two different things, two different levels here. I'm first talking about my criteria of people who go by reasonable understanding and sincerity in life.
You need to tell me what that means, though.
And exactly what I said earlier,
Yeah.
the ones who won't deny obvious facts and whose feet are firmly grounded in reality, they'd be willing to agree with basic facts as they are. They may not understand complex facts of reality, but basic facts they'd be willing to agree. And many people are in this category, unless they get really mad or whatever. There are some people who are, I don't know the percentage right now, but many people can argue just because of ego, whatever else. I am talking about those who are willing to agree and accept to facts as they are. Talking to other people might not be productive. I just stay away. To these people, this is my selection criteria, which I think is a fair selection criteria. If they can't represent facts as they understand, then there's no point in me asking them, including them in my polling data, should I say.
No, but morality is not polling data, is it? It has to be in accordance with the will of God. And if we're gonna use your approach, which is, okay, let's put that to aside and let's just think about the way you live your life and the decisions you make. Let's say me. I hope you think I'm fair-minded. If I pick an animal instead of a human, and I genuinely think, okay, this is the right thing to do, what? Am I all of a sudden no longer a fair-minded person automatically just because of that decision?
In my mind, yes. In my mind, I'd only be thinking, if you did do that, I'd be thinking, hey, I need to follow up with Abhi on this. There is something seriously going wrong somewhere.
Sure. So let's say I think that. I obviously don't, but let's say I think that. So go ahead, explain why that's wrong.
No. My point is, this is where you're misunderstanding me. My point is, I have a selection criteria, and then the point very simply is, when I've applied my selection criterion, which is fair-mindedness, my point is, people who have been selected, I have reasonable confidence, would say, if it's a choice between their own father and their own pet dog, I think any day of the week, they'll choose their father if there is only one spot to save in a lifeboat. To say anything else, I'd need to.
Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's say it's your own father. Well, I mean, someone's own father, or 20 other random people. You don't know who they are. Is there a correct decision there, or is it a little bit subjective?
If there is one place, you mean?
If there is only one, no, sorry. Let's say like a trolley cart problem, but the one person, like the 5 versus 1 trolley cart problem, like you can pull the lever. So basically, you're at a train track, and you see 5 people tied to one rail and one person tied to another rail, and the train is going to hit the person, the one person, but you can pull a lever and it's going to change the track and it's going to hit the other 5 people. Oh, sorry, I think it's the other way around. It's about to hit 5 people, but you can pull the lever and it will change the lane it's in or whatever, and it will only hit one person. Let's say the one person is your dad, or like, I don't know, someone you really, really care about, would you pull the lever?
This this is a great. I didn't come across. I mean, I think I might have somewhere come across something like this, but I didn't have time to think about it. I mean, in my mind, I'm not here. We're not talking about good versus bad. In my mind, here we're talking about good versus good. So I don't think it's that simple. I need to think through a little bit more to even see what God might think. Yeah, but here this is not in my mind a simple thing to evaluate. Here I need to fall back on the fact of the transcendency of
Sure,
God.
but without a divine revelation from God, what's stopping me from seeing that the distinction we make between species, even our own species to other species, is just purely it's just arbitrary. If God doesn't exist, and if we aren't made in His image, then me and a rat, we have the same value. So for someone to say, for you to say, oh, it's irrational under this worldview, would you not agree it's irrational to pick the rat?
I think you're complicating this, please. I'm really thinking you're complicating this. I'm making some claims which I don't think is what you are fighting against. My point is very simply, I'm not saying, okay, my first point very simply is, I can take a bunch of vegans. My challenge is, I really think if there is a case, if there is a situation where they have to save one person and the choice is between their father or mother, I mean, barring any family issues or whatever else, father or mother versus a lamb, I don't think they're going to save the lamb, in my view. Take it or leave it.
That's fine. That's fine. But the thing is, the crux of the argument is, like on veganism, it's not like like save a human or save an animal. It's choose option A or option B, and option A is gonna basically involves the direct slaughter of an animal. Option B is just as nutritious, but you don't have to do that. That's all it is. It's not even choose a human versus choose an animal. But I'm sure you would say, because God permits it, I'm perfectly entitled to choose either option, and it's okay no matter what.
No, I guess you're talking about a different subject right now. That's not what we were talking about earlier. At least that's what was.
No. What we were talking about earlier is So Ray said, well, quite clearly, the morality in Islam goes completely against what we believe to be true in our own hearts. But I said, well, I can apply the same thing, maybe not for everything in Christianity, but on some small things, I could say, well, God permits slaughtering animals for food, but I don't think that's okay, especially if I have another choice. I think it's actually bad to take a life when it's unnecessary.
Maybe I misheard you. From what I was responding to was very simply you saying, I can't remember the exact sequence of events right now, but what I heard, what I was responding to, at least, pardon me if I'd completely understood the context wrong, but what I was responding to at least was somewhere where your point was, isn't the life of a human being the same as the life of an animal? And in my view, I don't think even you would agree with that if push comes to the shove. Today,
my view is, if we don't have a divine revelation, then there is no answer to that, because there is no.
And my view is even with people who don't believe in a divine revelation, I'm going to tell you my view. My view is, between a man and an animal, they know what is worth more. I don't think there is going to be a doubt at all about this.
Yeah, but morality is not like a majority opinion type thing, though, is it?
Absolutely, and this
Yeah.
is my point. My
That's
point. We're not trying to define what morality is based on this argument. That's not the point.
Yeah, sure.
The attempt is not to define morality. The attempt is essentially to point to an internal witness which seems to be in human beings, an internal witness, to really appeal to conscience, should I say, appeal to conscience. That's what's happening. That's not to ultimately define morality, but that's really to help someone to motivate to tend towards God based on the appeal to conscience.
But I think I would argue this approach probably wouldn't work on a vegan, would it? Because they would argue,
and that's my point. It would, and that's my point. Although I don't want to have the theoretical discussion right now, but my point simply is, if I give you time and space, even now, Abhi, I really think people would agree not every life is worth the same.
No, but what was I going to say? It's not about that, though. Like I said earlier, it's about choosing to kill or not kill. It's not about choosing a human or an animal. That's not what it's about. And your challenge would be, when you talk to a vegan and you try and use this line of reasoning, would be they would basically say, well, God is permitting something that for me is quite clearly wrong, so why should I follow this God? And on that point, you're on the same boat as a Muslim when a Muslim is defending apostasy laws.
I disagree, and I'd like to move on.
No worries, no. That's fine. But do you see where I'm coming from, though?
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think some things for me are best enacted than discussed, in my view. I'm a brother mentioned this somewhere in the chat sometime earlier, where he very clearly said, Simon, a wonderful brother, he said, in someone's deathbed, I don't think they're going to believe in in determinism. They genuinely are going to have interest, and they're going to follow up on their interests, such as, hey, my wife come to me, hey, my children come to me, and that sort of stuff. And they're going to really treasure that at that time. But today they might argue. I know and that's precisely my point. Even you, the challenge I'm seeing right now with you, I think is all going to be sorted if I put you on the boat with the lifeboat and everything else.
I don't think that has anything to do with veganism. The lifeboat example has nothing to do with veganism.
The lifeboat
I
example.
I just have to value the animal above the pleasure I get from consuming them. I don't have to value the animal more than my father.
No, the point is, you would need to appreciate values of different things are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which a vegan may not appreciate. Normal vegan. Now you may appreciate because we have had our conversations. A typical vegan, if I pull him, and if he doesn't know what I say or what I would say, if I pull him to a conversation, I'm pretty sure he's going to start off by saying, well, we are live, they are live, everything is live, and whatever else, and we can't do anything to anything else, and so on. This is how his argument is going to start.
Yeah, that's how my argument would have started if you spoke to me a year ago.
Hey, Abhi, no, it's not how your argument would have started a year ago. That's how your argument started a few days ago when we had this conversation.
A few weeks ago. Because without but can you just appreciate, without knowledge on like Christianity and believing that human beings are made in the image of God, and that's why we're distinct, that's why we have more value. If you don't believe that, then of course you're going to believe what I used to believe.
No, and that is my entire point.
Okay, we're going in circles.
Be in a lifeboat one more space, everyone is suddenly going to believe humans are worth more than. And Richard Dawkins, do the same. Put Richard Dawkins in a boat, and let's say there is one more space alone in the lifeboat. His very close relative, let's say his child or whoever else, is drowning, and a cat is drowning, his own pet cat. I don't think he's going to try and save the pet cat. And that is my point. They can argue until the cows come home right now, theoretically, but push comes to the shove. I do think they know some things are worth more than some other things. Is my point. I don't want to even argue about this. I think
No,
it's
that's fine.
I think it is going to be demonstrated to be true time and time again. Is my firmly held conviction in this.
Okay. But the thing is, I think do you know, last week, I asked you about love and how it's very difficult. It's very difficult to really love, in the sense that, like, you would make the ultimate sacrifice, like you would take hell for someone else. Or at least it's very difficult for most people. Can I not use your logic and say that, like, most people time and time again probably would not make the sacrifice that Moses was willing to make, that Paul was willing to make. But there you said I conflated being willing to do it versus thinking it's good. And I think here we're doing the same thing. We're conflating who I'm willing to save versus, logically, can I reason, why I should do what. I don't have any base for that if I don't believe in God. You're muted. Sorry, Aro, you're muted.
Sorry. Anyway, what I was saying was, I think I'm too tired right now, but to even think carefully. But your point is, you're essentially saying what you think doesn't matter. What you would do is what matters.
No, what you think matters. What you do is what you do. But what you do is always, no one is perfect. We don't always do the right thing, even when push comes to shove.
Yeah. There is a good way to solve this, but I must really admit I'm really tired right now. On my brain is sort of slowing down at the moment. I don't want to make any. I don't want to say something right now which is inadequate.
Yeah.
But I think essentially we're talking about in these two different situations. It's two different what we do versus what we think ideas. I don't think with the terms refer to the same underlying phenomenon.
But it's a hypothetical, and it's what we are willing to do. Most people are not going to be in a position where they're in where there's one lifeboat left and they can only pick one person. In fact, most people, I think they would, some people might go for option C, which is to sacrifice themselves and let both their loved ones survive. But for instance, when there's eternal judgment, that's removed from the picture, because you're like, oh no, this is going to stay with me for eternity, this decision to go to hell, for my fellow man to go to heaven. And I know it's not like possible. That's not the way judgment works. But the fact that someone is willing to do that shows the amount, just how transcendent love is.
Yeah. So convenient decision, convenient what I'd like to do, or what I'd like to do based on convenience.
Yeah.
Is one thing. What I think I should do in terms of moral standard is another thing. So those are the two things we're talking about when it comes to the issue of whether I'll take the place in hell on behalf of someone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Convenience, I don't want to, but love compels me to even get there if it is possible, which demonstrate true love, genuine love. Now, when you get to this issue of which one to save, whether your father or a pet cat, I don't think the point there is a convenience-based point. I don't think. The decision we take there, I don't think is revelatory of what is convenient, but I think the decision that we take there is revelatory of what we really value. So when we say these are two similar situations where, well, what we would like to do is different from what we end up doing, I don't think the comparison is justified.
I think it is, because I think the point you're trying to make is that, there may be a vegan who will say, no, humans and animals are equal. But then you put that to the test, then they'll really, through their actions, they will reveal what they really believe. But what I'm trying to say is you can't judge someone's like moral values based on what they, as in what they think morality is based on what they do, because we all make mistakes. We all commit.
But please, Abi, but no one is saying you can build the entire gamut of what constitutes objective morality based on intuition alone or appealing to conscience alone. No one is saying that. No one is saying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
No
but you can't do it at all. That's what I think.
No, I think we can make a good start in relation to things such as love. I genuinely think we can make a good start. But I don't think you can comprehensively build a case, build the entire I don't think you can build a comprehensive picture of objective morality by appealing to conscience alone. But I think we can make a good start.
Okay. I'm willing to leave it there.
Yeah, better, because I'm really tired. I can't believe. I don't think I've been in this state for a very, very long time. I'm extremely tired.
This is 6 hours of debating you just went through, man.
I can't believe. Oh yeah, 6 hours. That's very true. Actually, it was the Indian stream, Brother Ray was. I don't know, Brother Ray, if you saw that. The stream on Indian religions was hectic. There were 10-15 people waiting all the time, and they all sorts of comments were flowing through in the private chat and in the other chat and so on. So it was really hectic. But I don't know if that's, of course, I had a long day the previous day also, like the long night. Went to bed, I think, around 1:30 or 2 or something. So yeah, anyway. Abi, I think someone, a sister says you better behave properly.
I'm really sorry.
Anyway, but you are right. What is a good structured way is clearly to begin with identifying God, and then figuring out what he presents to be goodness, which is his own nature, as a matter of fact. And that is a simple, foolproof, structured way of doing it.
Yeah, I think the only disagreement we have is on the thing that was literally just said before we gave up, which was you think you can use some intuition, and I'm just saying I don't think we can use any. That's the only disagreement.
I think in that, I think that disagreement anyway is not material when it comes to the rest of when it comes to the conclusion on objective morality. I think that's just a personal preference. I based on my experience, I genuinely think the appeal to conscience would work. and that's based on my experience. And yeah, but we can leave it at that. We can
Sure.
simply just say, the understood. This is a joke, by the way. Please, Abhi, this is a real joke. We can just say you're just half my age, so we'll leave it at that.
Half my what did you say? Half my height.
Age, sorry, not height.
Oh, half your age.
You might be taller than me, but age.
I think I
half
am.
my age.
I think I am half your age. Yeah.
You are, yeah, I know. Well, or thereabouts. No, not exactly half, but yeah,
Yeah.
thereabouts.
No, fair enough. I might be half Ray's age. Who knows?
Ray has been busy doing his bank statements while we are talking about something. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just working out the lottery number for tomorrow.
Yeah. No, he sort of relegated us, and he was thinking, oh, what is this? Let me better get back to something productive. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, when we go down that kind of level, it starts to get very complex. I think yeah, I mean, there are always things that can be difficult to get your head around. But I think in the kind of top level, when we look at, from a human perspective, there is, very clear concept of what we see as good, true morality, and I think the Bible does demonstrate that most accurate, without any room for error or flaw in it. It's absolutely as perfect as it can be, and if we follow it to the letter, we can't go wrong. But of course, that's the difficulty as being imperfect humans. We're not able to perfectly follow it. Where we go astray, there are consequences, and we see that clearly. So we, when it comes to the perfect example, we see that in Christ as documented in Scripture, and that's why we believe it. Some of the Old Testaments, and as you mentioned, some of the old stuff going on, not an easy thing to get your head around, and there's lots of things and reasons for it. But when we look at what we see as the Christian view as described in Scripture, which we come under in the New Testament, the law of the Messianic covenant of Christ, that's to me the perfect model to follow. And it's amazing that in the test of time, it's still the case, despite humans coming up with all sorts of different kind of virtues and ideas of how you can potentially have a better life if you look to become wealthy, you look to exploit others and one thing or another, and go down that path. But the thing is, what tends to come more abundantly clear is deep down on their heart, it's not what makes them truly happy. It's just a kind of artificial way of getting some benefit in life. But if you don't have deep down love and shared love between each other and all the virtues of love that really are blossoming as the most abundant quality of all, then there is a level of depravity within one's life as a result of that shortfall. And that seems to be the ultimate conquest. You can have everything in the world, all the money, all the possessions, all the friends in the world, but if you haven't got true love amongst each other, then it means nothing. And that's kind of why we make such a point of it. I don't know if that's much of help in your discussion, because I wasn't really following it to the letter. As I said, looking at my bank statements, what have you. But how he even knew that, that's just amazing. I was just kidding. I wasn't looking at my bank statements, but could have done. But yes, I didn't follow quite everything you guys were saying. But yes, what's your journey going like, Abby? Where are you now in your quest of truth and so on?
Yeah, I'm on Romans now. I finished Acts.
Romans, lovely.
Yeah, it's actually really. I really like Romans. Actually, it's answering a lot of theological questions I have on what it takes to be saved and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Other than that, we are getting quite late. I'm actually very tired. I've had some very tough days. I haven't put the hours that Errol does, but I do have a tough job on top of everything else, and sleeping hasn't been great. I'm a bit tired. I don't know, barring anything else, whether we want to wrap up now. Abby, unless you got any additional thoughts or final remarks or anything?
No, just thank you as always for the platform, for the patience, and yeah, take care.
Take care. Abby. God bless. Bye.
Yeah,
cheers.
From my Abby is gone. Sorry. From my point, just speaking to Abby. Hopefully he's listening. Hopefully, maybe is very simply God of the Bible. The more you think about his moral stature, is phenomenally exceptional in terms of. I think we many times we use the word that beauty and so on. For me, I think God is beautiful, and by that I mean just saying God is beautiful is I think an understatement. But I think God is beautiful, and by that I don't mean visually alone, but I think in terms of moral character, everything about him is incredible. God of the Bible is phenomenal, and the way he deals with justice, and how he even goes to his own people like David and so on, and say, hey, how come you did this evil to that guy, sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's not a respecter of persons. He doesn't take a partial stance on anything, a stance based on partiality towards someone. He is phenomenal, incredible, absolutely incredible. So that's the only thing I wanted to say, Ray, before we close.
That's a nice finishing touch. So cool. Thanks everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I think there was some very thought-provoking discussions, some great points, had some slightly alarming ones as well, but that's the nature of the beast. Hopefully they can reflect on what they said, and hopefully improve on moving it forward in a more objective and more understanding way, and that's fine. It is part of everyone's journey. That's what we're here for. We're happy to continue to have those discussions and bring them to a more fruitful benefit. So thank you for listening. God bless everyone for joining. Those who've been putting comments in, again, a big thank you to everyone. And as we close, and just pray. Al, if you just close in prayer for us.
Okay. Father, yes, thank you for this time, Lord. You are a great God. You are a great God, creator of the entire universe. All that we see and all that we don't see, they exist because of you and in you. As of course the writer says, I think, was it Paul who, when preaching, he said, we live, we move, and we have our being in you. Thank you for who you are, that even though you could have even said, okay, my dear sinful people, just get in and be my servants, and that would have been already very good. You went on to the extreme when you said, I'd like you to be my children and co-heirs with the Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for your great love. Thank you for the fact that you lavish your love upon us. That you lavish your love upon everyone. And there too, those who are not yet your children are the ones who are at the center of your attention. The lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son. Lord, we pray that through your Spirit, the many people who joined today in the stream would or is it two people actually? Two. Sorry, I'm thinking about the Indian stream also. Lord, pray that through your Spirit, both Ita and Abhi would, Lord, continue to pursue very important questions in life and would get to know you, Lord. Pray also for the number of atheists or agnostics who showed up in the live chat. Pray for your blessings for them. Lord, we pray that through your spirit in different people's lives, you open up opportunities that they'll come to situations where they are compelled to seek real answers to serious questions in life and come to the realization that you are God and that you love them. Bless them all, Lord. Please lead them, guide them. Take care of all things. Lord, we bless you. We bless you. It is a delight and honor at all times to bless you. To bless you. Even if we bless you a million years, a billion years, a gazillion years, Lord, it would not be sufficient in terms of the goodness you have showered upon us. So we would continue to bless you. Not that we can make up for your goodness, but that we'd at least like to be able to do our best. Help us, Lord. We bless you, we honor you, we praise you, we glorify you, we thank you. Take care of Ray, Lord. Thank you for the wisdom you've given him. Bless him. Continue to lead him, guide him, Lord, through difficult circumstances in different situations in life. Pray for your rich blessings to be upon him. We pray that through your spirit, you may give him more and more wisdom, Lord, as he does these streams, and also the other brothers and sisters, Lord. Pray for your rich blessings to be upon everyone. Lord, commend all things in your hands. We bless you. We give you thanks. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ray.
Yeah, you too. Great stuff.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise
the
the living God, Jesus Christ. Praise Him.